When other people fight monsters, they unleash sky-splitting sword auras and screen-shattering magic with cool effects that scream main character. But Ninomiya Tsukasa is different. He uses traps, and I mean actual traps, from an iron pan falling from the sky, a log swinging into your face, a pitfall throwing knives, a rain of arrows, electric shocks and bomb explosions to a dozen other bizarre items no one could ever imagine. While others solo monsters with raw power, Tsukasa turns the entire battlefield into his own personal death playground, possessing a mysterious class called the S-Rank Trapmaster. But for 2 long years he couldn't even use a single skill. He was seen as a fake S-Rank, scorned by society and bullied like a living punching bag. Tsukasa had fallen to the very bottom of society. Until the day the apocalypse descended, the moment the entire world transformed into a giant dungeon, his powers finally awakened. And from that moment on, every monster, along with every person who had ever looked down on him, began to understand one thing. The most terrifying person wasn't one of the hunters out there casting flashy skills. It was the madman who was silently and maniacally setting traps everywhere. Come and follow the story with us at MMOT Review. On the brightly lit television screen, the female host smiled with an incredibly professional demeanor, crisply opening the Hunter News segment. She then gestured towards the muscular man beside her to introduce the guest. Today we have A-Rank Hunter Ibuki Yugo, and the man immediately struck a ruggedly handsome pose in response. "Good evening," he said, not wanting to waste a single second of airtime. The host quickly began to flatter him. "You just led a successful raid against the Rift Gargoyles in the giant Snowfield dungeon. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that battle." The hunter smugly smoothed his hair and boasted, "Well, it was a perfect match for my A-Rank class Blue Flame Mage." The blue light from the screen illuminated the sullen back of the young man watching television. In that dim glow, the face of 23-year-old Ninomiya Tsukasa appeared, looking completely dazed. He spoke in a very bitter tone. "A rank, huh?" The sounds from the TV were still buzzing. It drilled right into his eardrums, along with the sight of the crowd cheering wildly. High-rank classes really are amazing. Everyone's looking at him with such admiration. The brighter the glamour on the television shone, the more Tsukasa retreated into the dark corner of his messy room. He lowered his head and muttered resentfully, "Why can't I be like that?" As if to mock him, a bright blue status window immediately popped open right before his eyes. Name: Ninomiya Tsukasa. Age 23, Level 1, Class S-Rank Trapmaster. Accompanied by stats of 6 for stamina and 5 for energy, he was as fragile as a piece of paper. He glared at that lofty but utterly useless title. He clenched his fists, sweat breaking out in pure frustration. Even though I'm an S-Rank, to understand this cruel irony, we must turn back time to the year 2210, the moment the Earth changed forever. The world began to revolve around dungeons. It all started when those magic gates began sprouting up one after another, tearing through the night. Countless gates appeared across the globe, and hidden behind them were territories unknown to man. Beyond them, a small brave hunter could be seen drawing their sword to face a giant beast. Inside the dungeons exist countless traps blocking the way, and vicious monsters have made them their nests. But the trade-off for these deadly dangers was a myriad of magical treasures. More importantly, there were mysterious items far beyond humanity's comprehension. They still lie dormant inside a cup that endlessly pours out ambrosia, an elixir capable of healing any wound and invisible power. That could even break the toughest of spoils, 2 dragon skeletons more durable than diamond, and a rain of gold coins that triggered the sudden evolution of all humankind. Those who collected them would possess a colossal fortune. It was also at that time that humans began to awaken their classes, responding to that miraculous awakening. A man smirked in satisfaction as he grasped the purple magic dancing in his palm. Thanks to this newfound power, humanity was able to hold its head high and face the savage dragons directly. Humans' physical abilities improved drastically, and they began to wield skills. The powerful returned with loot gathered from the dungeons, accompanied by a single incredibly smooth sword stroke that wiped out hordes of monsters. Those survivors strode proudly and were hailed as hunters. Their glorious achievements forged the legends of a new era, establishing a completely new set of rules for society. And so a dungeon-centered economy was born, along with an extremely meritocratic system. Any individual who awakened a high-rank class was respected and rose to the top, in complete contrast to that brilliant radiance. The weak, like Tsukasa, could only clutch their stomachs as they collapsed under the trampling boots of the strong. Even dropouts or people in my situation were despised. Snapping out of his dark past, his eyes once again locked resentfully onto the system window displayed before him. Class S rank Trap Master, controls traps within dungeons. A corner of Tsukasa's lip twitched upwards as he tried to piece together his initial hope. If you awaken a high-rank class, your life will change. The class I awakened was S-rank Trap Master. The young boy he once was had been engrossed in visions of himself waving his hand to create a brilliant blue matrix completely dominating every battlefield inside dungeons filled with countless traps. Controlling traps is the same as controlling the dungeon itself. A radiant smile immediately appeared on his face along with a fiercely burning desire. When I awakened this strongest class, I was so thrilled that day. It was supposed to be perfect, but harsh reality came crashing down, ruthlessly swallowing all my hopes, the best day of my life. That was 2 years ago. It happened when I tried to use my skill for the first time to get my hunter's license. The memory took him back to the central examination area. The examiner pushed his glasses up slightly, then pointed towards the target. All right, please show us your skills here. Even those without a license wouldn't be penalized for using their skills. At that moment, Tsukasa clenched his fists in front of his chest full of confidence and shouted, "Understood!" Pouring all his strength into it, the young man swung his arm forward, his eyes sharp as he roared with conviction, "Activate trap!" However, his grand arm-spread pose was met with nothing but absolute silence. Not a single spark of magic flashed. There was only the crowd behind him blinking and staring at him in dead silence. A sudden panic washed over him, and Tsukasa's pupils contracted. He broke out in a cold sweat, staring at his useless hand. What the skill didn't activate? Amidst the crushingly awkward atmosphere, he nervously pulled his hand back and stammered, This made the examiner standing beside him tilt his head, furrow his brow, and ask, "Is there a problem?" Trying to salvage his last shred of dignity, Tsukasa raised his index finger and gave the examiner a forced smile. Just one more time. Unwilling to give up, he wound up again and swung both hands forward with all his might. The crowd behind him began to look annoyed, watching the desperate young man, waving his hands wildly in the air. In response to the heavy roar he let out, trying to cast the skill so hard his throat felt raw. His shout was only met with a cold squint from the examiner as he adjusted his glasses. All his efforts had vanished into thin air. Tsukasa trembled, staring at his two hands. He was in a state of utter panic. "No way! No way! No way! No way!" The examiner let out a long, drawn-out sigh while the crowd behind them began to whisper and gossip, with judgmental stares putting a stop to this farce. The examiner scowled. "Excuse me, Mr. Ninomiya, what exactly are you trying to do?" Tsukasa frantically pointed at his own system window to explain. This is different. It's a skill that forcibly activates traps to attack enemies. The blue skill window clearly displayed the details of the ability, forced trap activation. Forces traps installed in a dungeon to activate. Low energy consumption. Skill proficiency 0. Like a drowning man grasping at a piece of driftwood, his eyes widened as he had a sudden realization about how this profession worked. That's it. It must only work on actual traps inside a dungeon. He hurriedly turned to the examiner, his eyes filled with hope, but the man just looked away coldly. He turned his face away and let out an incredibly weary sigh. A cold glint flashed across his glasses as he delivered his merciless judgment. "Every now and then we get people like this. Frauds who fake their rank or abnormal individuals who can't distinguish between fantasy and reality." Feeling utterly insulted, Tsukasa pointed directly at his brightly glowing status window. He raised his voice in protest. "But it really is S-rank. It's written right here." However, all the examiner could see was a bright red "Access Denied" warning. He replied indifferently, "I see. However, you can't view another person's status window." Tsukasa awkwardly waved his hands, trying to grasp at his last slim chance. Then please test me in a dungeon. Then you'll know for sure." But he was immediately hit with a splash of ice-cold water. Dungeons are dangerous. Cutting off any chance of retreat, the man concluded the matter with an extremely stern tone. "If you cannot prove you have sufficient combat power, you are not permitted to enter. That is the reason for licenses and tests." The verdict rang out like a death sentence. Tsukasa's arms fell limply to his sides, his eyes welling up with tears of helplessness. "So, what am I supposed to do?" Without paying the slightest bit of attention to his utter despair, the examiner decisively turned his back and walked away, leaving the slowly dispersing crowd behind. Well, dungeon exploring isn't the only job out there. A lonely darkness fell over the young man's stunned face, officially closing the door on my dream of changing my life. And just like that, I couldn't become a hunter. The scene changes to the towering glass-paned building of the Hunters Association. The place that completely buried my title of Trap Master. The replacement job I got was being a gopher right here in the training hall. A powerful kick whistled past my cheek. Sweat flew from the impact, followed by a furious shout, "Hey!" Before he could even get his bearings, a blonde-haired colleague kneed him squarely in the face. It was an agonizing blow. The man growled aggressively as he pressed Tsukasa's head down, pinning his face to the ground as he threatened, "Come on, just do your damn job." Immediately after, a savage kick sent him flying as if he were a soccer ball. The man sneered mockingly, "You're our punching bag, and you wanted to be a hunter." Tsukasa's body was sent completely off balance. He slid pathetically across the cold floor. He pushed himself up with both hands, panting, his face swollen and bruised. He recalled bitterly, "I failed the exam because I couldn't use my skills, but my enthusiasm alone was recognized, and I was given a job assisting hunter training." I still remember him. Turns out it's a small world. A man started digging up the past. Back in middle school, when you were getting bullied, you showed up at the exam site and said, "I'm S rank." A chilling aura radiated from the thug. He was repeatedly flexing his gloved hands. Tsukasa was fully aware of his own nightmare. This guy was Asanuma, a middle school classmate who was also there that day. He takes out all his frustrations about the dungeon on me under the guise of training. Tsukasa's eyes remained wide open, a stubborn and unyielding glint in them. I really am S rank." The bastard Asanuma's eyes suddenly filled with confusion as he witnessed his old classmate's stubborn resilience. Annoyed that his prey dared to talk back, he mercilessly stomped down on Tsukasa's body. "Just accept reality already." Fresh blood splattered with every violent kick mixed with his vicious growls. "So why are you here taking a beating from me, huh?" After a while of mercilessly beating the punching bag, Asanuma stood with his hands on his hips, panting and glaring down at the one crawling at his feet. "Do you get it now?" The swindler accepted that utter contempt. Tsukasa grimaced, reminding himself why he had to grit his teeth and endure this humiliation. But more important than the promise itself was that desperately needed escort permit. It allowed a non-hunter to legally enter a dungeon. Enduring the bone-deep agony, he propped himself up, gasping for breath as a trickle of red blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. He desperately clung to their agreement. "If I endure this beating, you promised you'd be my sponsor." As soon as he heard this, Asanuma sharply turned his head away. A hint of anger mixed with extreme disgust showed on his face. His eyes narrowed, and a cruel, cunning glint suddenly appeared in them. Catching that sinister look, Tsukasa's pupils trembled violently. His hazy mind realized something terrible was about to happen. The atmosphere in the training room suddenly grew heavy. Asanuma's dark figure uttered a threat. "All right, I get your obsession now." He immediately turned back, a vicious, spine-chilling grin spreading across his face. "I'll give you one final test." He dragged him outside to an empty courtyard. Asanuma jutted his chin out, explaining, "There are high-rank hunters watching in the training room here." Those words left Tsukasa bewildered. "A final test?" he asked. Striding forward confidently, the thug smiled smugly. "It's simple." He held the flimsy paper with its scribbled signature right in front of him. He clearly laid out the rules of the game. "It has my signature on it. If you can take this permit from my hand, you pass." For a brief second, a glimmer of hope flashed across Tsukasa's bruised and swollen face, but it was immediately extinguished when he saw two of Asanuma's lackeys silently approaching from behind. He spoke in a mocking, playful tone. "You'll have to endure their attacks first." A flash of terrible memories made Tsukasa break out in a cold sweat, but he had no choice but to grit his teeth and face them. The same guys who ganged up with Asanuma to bully him back in middle school. Fine. Pushing aside all the shame and humiliation, he straightened his back to face the three vicious thugs. "I have no other choice. For the dungeon." And so a brutal gang beating began. A barrage of punches and kicks rained down on him without a moment's pause. "Take this!" And another just die. The immediate result was Tsukasa collapsing completely onto the ruined ground while Asanuma still stood tall, looking down and sneering. "See, not so stubborn after all. Are you really aiming for the dungeon?" Seeing his opponent's tenacity, the blonde-haired man squatted down, dangling the paper right in front of his face. "If you're that determined." Contrary to expectation, his eyes suddenly darkened with a sinister look. With both hands, he ripped the paper in two. "Then there's no way I can let you go." Tsukasa's eyes flew wide open, stunned, as he watched his lifeline torn to shreds. Asanuma tossed the tattered pieces of paper into the air like trash. He threw his head back and laughed heartily. "A piece of trash like you daring to have hope." It pissed me off. so I decided I'd crush that hope right in front of your eyes. Pretty brilliant idea, don't you think I thought so? His last nerve snapped. Tsukasa bit his lip so hard it bled with rage. Ignoring all his injuries, he threw himself straight at that bastard. A scream of pure fury ripped from his throat. Asanuma! But the difference in their strength was too great. Before he could even touch his enemy's clothes, his wrist was caught with ease. With practiced ease, Asanuma instantly plunged a glowing magic dagger through his hand. Arg! Quick stab! He collapsed to his knees, his hand pinned to the floor. He could only grit his teeth and endure it as the lackeys jeered. Was that your skill just now? What a cool hunter. Seeing that the fun was over, Asanuma waved his hand, turned his back, and started to walk away. So you fail, just give up. Ignoring the lackeys who were still holding their knives and calling him a cool hunter, he was left alone. He gripped the handle of the magic dagger, trying to pull it out in extreme agony. Damn it! The cruel reality was laid bare. As the dagger shattered into motes of magical light, he thought bitterly, of course it was a lie. I knew it. Everyone knew it. It was an unwritten rule in this society. The system allows for escort permits, but commoners can't contribute anything inside a dungeon, and any injury or death falls on the sponsor's shoulders. He had no choice but to begrudgingly accept his lowly status. He had nothing but disadvantages, so unless some billionaire was willing to pay an absurd fee for entertainment, no one would ever act as a sponsor. The wicked smile of his cruel enemy continued to haunt his mind, especially since there was no way Asanuma would have ever kept his promise. He trudged under the bright billboards of famous hunters, his long shadow a picture of despair. Even so, I have no other choice but to cling to hope. His face, covered in wounds, was bowed, his eyes dull and empty. He looked up at the dazzling smile of a promising new star on a large screen. The desire to escape the bottom of society flared up intensely once more. If I can just get into a dungeon, this trash life might change. He clenched his fists. Gritting my teeth, I held on to the last flickering flame of hope. That belief was the only thing keeping me alive, but it seemed like creation itself was laughing, thinking he hadn't suffered enough. In that very moment, a bolt of blood-red lightning tore through the sky, striking right where the unlucky young man was standing. The heavens shattered as a powerful crimson bolt slammed down. It formed a vicious vortex right next to where Tsukasa stood. He looked up in terror, a piercing scream caught in his throat as the blood-soaked whirlwind loomed, ready to swallow him whole. Ah, Tsukasa flinched, whipping his head around at the sound of a desperate warning scream from the crowd behind him. Behind you! Look out! Everyone around him was fleeing in a panic. They scattered as they witnessed a massive building collapsing with a deafening roar. The building is falling. His pupils instantly constricted perfectly, reflecting the absolute horror of the destructive power crashing down. Space ripped open, revealing a crimson orb of energy that slowly, monstrously expanded. Even a giant billboard and a traffic light were caught in the twisting force, and torn apart, showering the street below. Thinking fast, Tsukasa dove behind a pile of rubble to escape death's grasp. Wiping away beads of sweat, he muttered, "That was too close." An electronic screen flickered, then flashed to life, showing the face of a female news anchor who was delivering an urgent announcement. "This is an emergency alert." He shot his head up, eyes wide with shock as he listened to the breaking news. According to the Hunters Association, dungeon breaks have occurred all over the world. The peaceful world humanity once knew has now officially entered an age of ruin. The entire world has seemingly turned into a dungeon. A colossal evil dragon took the opportunity to fire, a fiery beam of destruction leveling an entire skyscraper. Meanwhile, the anchor's voice continued intermittently. The government and the association are currently... Tsukasa's eyes clearly reflected, a scene of deadly crimson filled with utter terror. He looked up at the blood-red sky where vile beasts snarled, baring their fangs and claws. Tsukasa staggered backward from the violent pressure of the airflow, his body seized with absolute panic at the bizarre sight. All he could do was cover his head and drop to the ground, trying to hide as a monster dove straight down from the center of the vortex. Tsukasa was then frozen to the spot, drenched in a cold sweat, watching the crowd stampede over one another, their screams horrific. He stared wide-eyed, his mind spinning at this absurd reality. The world has become a dungeon. This is bad. This is really bad. If this place really has turned into a dungeon. A familiar status window suddenly appeared before him amidst the chaos, like a divine blessing. Profession S-rank trapmaster, controls traps within dungeons. At that moment, the corners of Tsukasa's mouth began to curl up slowly, forming a crazed, radiant smile. For the first time he could feel it. An incredibly powerful stream of blue magic was exploding through his veins. I can use my skills. Meanwhile, the fiery spatial orbs continued to twist frantically, spitting out 7 monsters. The sky had now fallen, marking the moment the boundary between the two worlds was forever erased, the dungeon break. One day, the gates separating our two worlds suddenly went berserk, and our entire daily life was transformed into a perilous dungeon. Confidently, Tsukasa knelt on one knee. Without a moment's hesitation, he swung his hand and slammed the blue magic into the ground, causing the pavement to crack. Sonic trap scan! The magic instantly radiated outwards in a brilliant display. His consciousness connected directly with everything around him. If the whole world has become a dungeon, then I should be able to detect all the traps in this area with my skill. Tsukasa's eyes blazed with a powerful light, and a map of the area instantly appeared in his mind. I see them! I can see the traps set up around here. He broke into a satisfied grin. After so many years of helplessness and utter humiliation, it really works. I've been waiting for this day for so long. My power, it isn't fake, I can become a hunter. The system now clearly displayed an image of razor-sharp spikes emerging from thin air. The things that hinder adventurers, the traps hidden throughout a dungeon. Normally they exist to torment the hunters who come to conquer it. Tsukasa's S-rank power officially exposed every deadly corner of the city on a brilliant radar map. But for me, it's different. The S-rank power I possess. If I use it, I can pinpoint the exact location of the traps. He sat proudly amidst the swirling explosive magic surrounding him. He raised his head, turning the tables with a triumphant smile. And once I know where the traps are... He shot forward like the wind, a brilliant blue magic trailing from him. His eyes were filled with resolve, but he stopped dead in his tracks when he saw a giant armored monster swinging a sword chasing down civilians. He immediately exclaimed, "This is bad, a monster!" After a second's hesitation, he bent down and quickly picked up a rusted iron bar from the rubble to use as a weapon. Then Tsukasa gripped the metal bar tightly in his hand. His eyes lit up with immense confidence. By using the power of the Trap Master, I can definitely defeat it now. Meanwhile, that hulking brute was still frantically chasing a desperate mother and child amidst panicked screams. "Run! It's catching up. Hurry, hide. This city is doomed." Unfortunately, the little boy tripped and fell flat on his face, letting out a weak cry. Ah! That pained sound made his mother immediately whip her head around, crying out her son's name, Takaru. The terrified child responded in fear, "Mommy!" In an instant, the shadow of the giant armored beast completely engulfed the tear-stricken boy's body. The monster curled its lip into a cruel smile and raised its gleaming greatsword high, preparing to mercilessly strike down. The blade sliced through the air, whistling down with terrifying force. But right at that incredibly perilous hair's-breadth moment, Tsukasa managed to rush in using the flimsy iron bar to block the fatal blow and save the child. The monster gaped in astonishment. Tsukasa gritted his teeth, straining against the immense pressure from his enemy while shouting a challenge, "Come on, you monster!" Despite the overwhelming difference in strength, Tsukasa flashed a fierce, triumphant grin and declared, "The trap to finish you is already set." With that, he masterfully dodged aside as the armored monster unleashed another sweeping slash. He then leaped backward, escaping the blow, and from the giant monster that smashed into the ground. He had successfully lured his prey into position just as an iron spike from a trap suddenly shot up, shattering the pavement. "Did you think this cowardly prey would only run?" The monster let out a series of chuckles in response to that cheap taunt. He stood calmly with his arms crossed and replied nonchalantly, "That's right." Tsukasa gave a cold smirk, his eyes sharp as he pointed directly at the fatal spot. "The real trap is right there." The moment he spoke, a massive blue magic circle blazed to life right behind the monster, originating from its very center. A giant axe blade shot out from the magic circle, tearing through the air. He watched intently as the beast was sliced in two while the system panel displayed the information, "Iron Axe Pendulum." An iron axe pendulum attacks prey within range. He witnessed the gruesome scene. He stood tall proudly, shouting in victory. A direct hit, sweet Tsukasa reveled in the satisfying feeling of holding the power of life and death, formulating his own philosophy. "I'll defeat monsters by smashing them with my traps. Yes, this is my way of fighting." After clearing away the threat, he quietly stepped back, giving the mother and son space to reunite through their tears. "Takeru, Mom." Tsukasa smiled gently, his dangerous aura from before vanishing as he murmured, Thank God you're both safe. But that peace didn't last long. His smile vanished instantly. He stepped onto the beast's corpse with a deeply contemplative expression. But, for an armored monster to appear in the city like this, I've seen these in the association's files before. Even mid-rank hunters have to form a party to deal with dangerous monsters like these. Suddenly, his body jolted. His expression immediately grew tense as he sensed a fresh wave of killing intent coming from the distance. He whipped his head around to look toward the crimson horizon. He saw the mother and son screaming in terror once again. Without a moment's hesitation, Tsukasa planted himself firmly behind them, acting as a sturdy shield against the new threat. Descending amidst the piercing screams, he stood defiantly before a horde of armored, weapon-wielding monsters. The situation was hanging by a thread. This time they've come in a pack. I don't have time to take them out one by one. To deal with this situation properly. He raised his hand glowing with magical energy high above his head. In that case, I'll use this skill. Tsukasa, his eyes filled with resolve, tilted his head to the sky, gathering all the fierce, explosive magic in his body to unleash a decisive blow. Activate trap. Instantly, magic circles appeared in unison above the monsters' heads, causing them to look up in confusion. From those very circles, a massive, relentless shower of giant boulders rained down, mercilessly crushing the armored monsters. They only had time to let out meaningless screams before being obliterated into paste. A system notification immediately appeared. Forced activation successful. In exchange for consuming mana, I can activate traps without having to touch them. After the brutal rock storm, Tsukasa stood proudly amidst the pile of flattened monster corpses. The system panel was still displaying continuously rockfall, a mysterious rain of stones that crushes the prey. Right after that, a series of consecutive notifications popped up. Level up to 2. Active skill scan trap. Activate trap is locked as it is not yet owned. He stared at the system panel, his face filled with radiant satisfaction and brimming with hope. It seems I can learn new skills too, just as expected of an S-rank profession. I can become even stronger. I can make it as a hunter. Meanwhile, the crowd of civilians hiding behind a blue tarp were whispering in terror, discussing the rock slide that had just suddenly fallen from the sky. Did you just do that? A man immediately rushed over to Tsukasa, desperately pleading, "Please help us. You're a skilled hunter, aren't you? Where should we go to hide?" Tsukasa turned around, trying to reassure the panicked crowd. "I'm not an official hunter, but right now the #1 priority is to find a safe area." Those words made the man ask blankly, "A safe area?" He then clearly explained a basic rule. Inside a dungeon, there's always a safe area. There are no traps there, and you don't have to worry about being attacked by monsters. But the man only grew more desperate because ordinarily to do that, the problem is locating that spot. To identify a safe area when you don't know where it is requires sending out a fairly large-scale survey team. The man looked at Tsukasa with extreme worry and lamented, "In that case, we don't have that kind of luxury." But he just remained calm, waved a hand dismissively, and replied, "Not a problem." He raised his glowing hand high, smiling smugly and confidently at everyone's confused gazes. For me now, something like that is simple. Tsukasa focused his energy and activated the skill once more, Scan Trap. The entire city appeared just like a 3-dimensional map in his mind. I have the power to detect the location of traps. If I use this technique and identify the points that are completely free of traps, that means it's a safe area. His eyes flashed with a blue light locking onto the target. I see it. He immediately turned around and decisively ordered the utterly bewildered crowd, "The safe area is up ahead at Higashikawa Park, follow me." But faced with their hesitation, he gave a powerfully captivating smirk. "That is, if you all trust in my skills." With no other choice, they had to risk their lives and follow this reluctant hero. All right, we'll follow you. It's come to this after all. We have no choice but to trust you." Finally, the entire group reached the safe location. They cheered loudly in celebration. "We made it. This is Higashikawa Park." Everyone could finally breathe a sigh of relief, enjoying the all-too-brief moment of peace. "We'll be safe if we stay here, right? It doesn't look like there are any monsters at all. We're saved." The mother hugged her son tightly, turning to their savior to thank him earnestly. "Thank you so much. Yes, if it weren't for you, we—" But right at that moment, Tsukasa suddenly froze his eyes, scanning the surroundings with vigilance. "Wait. Huh." He shot off like a flash of lightning, leaving the crowd behind in utter bewilderment. Tsukasa gritted his teeth, clenching his fists as he felt an incredibly familiar power. "I see it now. With what I have now, my eyes are the strongest. The entire image of the city once again appeared clearly in his vision, but this time, he had discovered an earth-shattering truth. This was the eye of a god. If a place with absolutely no traps was a safe zone, then conversely a place with a dense concentration of traps. He cast his gaze toward a building completely shrouded in red dots. That place heavily guarded by traps. There must be something there. An icon of a gleaming gold-locked chest immediately appeared in his mind, stoking his greed and his intense desire for a new life. Could it be a powerful hidden item? He stomped his foot, bracing himself for a launch. Without a hint of hesitation, he charged straight toward the mysterious building. Tsukasa stood majestically before his target, his eyes blazing with determination. If I can get my hands on it. But before he could even act, a familiar, sarcastic voice echoed from behind him. What the hell is this? I was just wondering what kind of little runt was running around. A hulking figure carrying a greatsword slowly approached, the sound of metal scraping against the pavement, kicking up brilliant sparks. The figure emerged from the shadows, and it was none other than his sworn enemy, that lying S-rank Ninomiya. Tsukasa's pupils constricted violently. He whipped his head around his face, etched with horror. You're... The thug grinned with absolute delight, revealing that all-too-familiar, detestable face. Asanuma. Tsukasa took a step back, his whole body trembling with rage and utter shock. Asanuma! Why is this guy here? A tense, suffocating atmosphere immediately descended. Tsukasa broke out in a cold sweat, his eyes fixed on the source of that malicious voice. So you're like me, huh? In the distance, Asanuma sauntered closer, a crowbar held firmly in his hand, smirking, avoiding those annoying monsters. That's how you got in here too, right? With that insolent remark, he slammed the head of the metal chunk onto the pavement, creating dazzling sparks, and growled, It's true there are no monsters here. But in exchange, instead, his face suddenly twisted into a demented frenzy, and with a menacing purple aura, he lunged forward aggressively. You've got a vicious human like me right here. Human? His bulging eyes were shot with veins of pure ecstasy locking onto the miserable prey before him. As a warning, he swung his weapon down with a crazed roar. The aura of his declaration of war made Tsukasa jump back in alarm. He stumbled and fell backward, hastily raising his hands to protest. Wait, what the hell do you think you're doing? This is an emergency, you know that? This isn't the time to be fighting. But he was immediately cut off by the brute. Like I give a damn. His arrogant words left Tsukasa completely stunned. Sweat poured down his face as he heard the man declare coldly, This world's already gone to hell anyway. Standing majestically like a demon god trampling on countless skulls, he loudly proclaimed his own twisted philosophy. From now on, it's survival of the fittest. I can kill anyone who pisses me off. The one with power has everything. That's the law of this new world. I'm on the side of the strong. He threw his head back and let out a sick, booming laugh, his desire for violence overflowing. I wonder if killing people raises your level. Let's test it out. Faced with such insanity, Tsukasa's mind raced, analyzing the situation. This guy, he's completely lost it. And how the hell did he move just now? He was startled as he recalled the sight of the man gliding across the ground as lightly as a phantom. Those demonic steps had been flawless. It was clear he was actively avoiding them, while knowing the exact location of every trap. As if reading his thoughts, Asanuma's grin widened menacingly. What's wrong? Even a little pissant like you noticed, huh? My movements flawlessly avoid the traps. I'll let you in on the secret. Like a master magician, he smugly tossed out a small electronic device. Ta-da! It's thanks to this. Seeing the strange item, Tsukasa was stunned, recognizing it instantly. A trap detector. It's not as accurate as my trap scan skill, but it's an item that can detect all nearby traps. He silently assessed the value of the stylish device. And a high-precision version at that. That's an extremely rare item, something a low-level hunter would have an incredibly hard time getting their hands on. Where did Asanuma get that thing? Casting aside all his dignity, the brute shamelessly boasted about his thievery. I just got it. I looted it. From a hunter supply shop in town during the chaos. He spread his arms wide, crowning himself king in his own insane world. With this in my hands, I have nothing to fear. I know the location of every single trap in this space. Taking advantage of the moment the man was lost in his smug satisfaction, Tsukasa secretly gathered magical energy into his hand, his eyes sharpened with resolve as he thought, in that case, I'll catch him off guard with my forced activation skill. He locked onto the deadly target hidden right above the madman's head, that attack trap right above him. Trap. I'll activate it. Without hesitating for another second, he decisively swung his hand, unleashing the skill. Trap activation. He instantly summoned countless giant steel beams from a magic circle. Darkness flashed, enveloping Asanuma's figure. As the extremely heavy metal blocks came hurtling down, just as he looked up, the system window immediately displayed a notification Iron Rain attacking the dungeon invader. Signaling the powerful attack had crushed him, an agonized scream rang out. Goha. Having backed away from the danger zone, Tsukasa spread his arms in a defensive stance, his heart pounding. He waited for the result amidst the thick cloud of dust from the impact. As the dust began to settle, he let out a sigh of relief, the corners of his lips curling into an incredibly satisfied smile. I did it. However, that short-lived joy was instantly extinguished. Blazing red sparks suddenly shot out from under his feet, making him jump. Tsukasa's eyes widened in horror. Smashing right into his view was the devilish grin of the man he thought had been crushed flat. Heh heh. Asanuma leisurely stood up, his entire body enveloped in a purple electric current. Defense. He said in a voice dripping with biting sarcasm, "What was that just now? That pathetic little trap." He glared at him with utter contempt, slowly revealing his hand from amidst the rubble. A moment ago you were rambling on about having a trap activation skill.
Right.
A chill ran down Tsukasa's spine. He trembled, breaking into a cold sweat as he pieced everything together and realized a horrifying truth. Those sparks that flashed on his back just now. Don't tell me he has an invisible shield. He shockingly recalled the full function of the defensive item. It deploys a special invisible barrier around the hunter's body, a defensive device that protects the user. With that item, one can block fatal attacks multiple times. Asanuma smirked when he saw Tsukasa's stunned expression, tauntingly asking, "Cuckoo, I told you, didn't I?" The maniacal man held high the defensive item he had just looted. He roared, "I looted the entire item shop during the chaos." He held up both precious items, smugly declaring, "A trap detector and an invisible shield. With these two items, even I can join the ranks of high-class hunters." Then he lunged forward like a beast of prey, growling, "Compared to a failed hunter like you, I'm on a whole different level." A devastating punch slammed right into Tsukasa's stomach, causing him to double over in agony. The force of the blow was so strong it sent him flying, crashing face first to the ground. He only managed to let out a choked groan. "Urk!" He pushed himself up on his hands, glaring with hatred at his weapon-wielding enemy. The thug spoke his voice, a mocking provocation. "Hey, you piece of trash, did you just attack me from behind?" Without giving him a chance to answer, he swung his weapon down hard on him, his tone filled with glee. "I always told you this when I bullied you, didn't I?" He rained down relentless blows on his back. Fresh blood began to seep out as he cruelly explained, "First, you punch them in the gut and make them crawl on the ground just like this. That's the theory." He raised his weapon, preparing to deliver the finishing blow to his prey, a look of pure madness on his face. "Just you watch, you stubborn fools at the Hunters Association." Tsukasa's pupils constricted violently as the man roared in a bloodthirsty frenzy, "This is the beginning of my legend!" But just at that moment, he mustered what little battered strength he had left and twisted his body back. The other man roared in resentment, "You always treated me like trash just because I was D-rank, sending me to these goddamn dungeons." The weapon in his hand also began to flicker with a bright glow. "My power isn't limited to just this. If I could just get to a high-level dungeon, I could have shown all of you what I'm made of." But Tsukasa was well aware of his extremely disadvantageous situation. He gritted his teeth and thought, "Damn it! At this rate I'll be defeated. I have to do something." In that decisive moment, he poured all of his remaining mana into his hands. A powerful, brilliant blue energy erupted as he aimed his hands straight at his enemy. He furiously lunged forward, yelling, "Activate trap!" Seeing a spiked mace begin to form from the magic circle, Asanuma smirked contemptuously. What a waste of effort. And then he swung his weapon, effortlessly swatting the mace away in a streak of fire. Standing proudly as he watched the mace get destroyed, his glowing purple eyes filled with ambition. "I'll get even stronger by finding more items in high-level dungeons." Undeterred, Tsukasa continued to swing his hand persistently, casting the skill. "Activate trap!" The man moved like a phantom, effortlessly dodging the series of spikes that shot towards him as he roared, "All those who looked down on me until now, I'm going to kill every last one of them." Witnessing this scene, Tsukasa realized in despair, "He's seeing through my attacks perfectly. Is this the power of the trap detector?" As his face contorted in pain, an even more terrible thought flashed through his mind. And even if they hit, what's the use? The shadow of his enemy loomed before him, leaving him completely helpless and desperate. With Asanuma's invisible shield, I'm completely out of options. But just at his moment of deepest despair, an unexpected sound echoed in his head. What's this? The sound of a transformation. A status change. Along with it, a system notification appeared. Skill proficiency has increased. Due to exceeding the required number of activations, a new skill has been acquired. He came to his senses with a start, realizing, I see. Because I've been using this skill over and over again. My skill proficiency increased before I even noticed. He quickly scanned the information that appeared before him. So what is it? What's this new skill trap creation consumes mana to create a new trap? Tsukasa's eyes lit up with a ray of hope. He murmured in utter amazement, the power to create a new trap. If I use this skill, maybe... Seeing that Tsukasa still hadn't collapsed, Asanuma roared with a mix of anger and confusion. Huh. Hey, you piece of trash, he taunted upon seeing Tsukasa get into a stance. Preparing for a counterattack, what's with that weird pose? But Tsukasa just focused on gathering energy into his hand, coldly repeating the man's words. I said we'd start with a punch to the stomach, didn't I? His eyes flashed with hatred as he let out a roar, channeling all his magic power. I'll make you pay, you bastard! He condensed the seething purple energy in his hand, determined to turn the tables using this unknown power. Creating and activating the trap himself, he thrust his palm forward and shouted the newly awakened skill, Trap Creation! A massive burst of energy erupted from his body. Confirming the attack with the Trap Creation skill, a giant log suddenly materialized out of thin air, right in front of Asanuma, causing him to scream in horror, Why is there a trap there? Impossible. The system panel immediately displayed the words, Log Attack. A summoned log attacks the target. Just as he was wondering in a panicked confusion, none of my items can do something like that. The log slammed violently into Asanuma, forcing a pained groan out of him. Ark! Witnessing this, Tsukasa smirked triumphantly. All right. He looked at his handiwork, excitedly explaining his new skill to himself. Trap creation. I created a trap in an empty space. Realizing he had the upper hand, he clenched his fist, deciding to end the fight with this skill. I can win, I'll activate the trap one more time. Knocked to the ground. Asanuma was in a state of utter panic, screaming in boundless disbelief. No way, creating a trap out of thin air. No way. A piece of trash like you could never do that. Tsukasa strode closer, calmly replying, Sorry, Asanuma. I'm not like you. I'm an S-rank profession, a trap master. He gathered a deep purple orb of energy in his hand, a smile full of confidence. That's why I can do this. Finishing his declaration, he swung his hand forward. A complex magic circle appeared as he shouted majestically, Trap Creation! The magic circle instantly appeared right above Asanuma, causing him to let out a gasp of astonishment. Huh! A bucket fell from the sky, landing squarely on his head. The system panel announced, Drop Bucket. A bucket falls from a great height. While he groaned pathetically, Ugh! He sat limply on the ground, dazedly touching his head and looking at the bucket that had rolled beside him, asking in bewilderment, Huh? A bucket. Seeing that, Tsukasa clicked his tongue, looking a little disappointed. Shh. Just as I thought. This is all I can do. He thought to himself, assessing his current limits. Damn, large-scale traps. Creating them instantly seems to require a lot more magical power. Asanuma burst out laughing arrogantly. Ha! What was that for? Is this pathetic little trap really your limit? Then I have nothing to fear. Tsukasa just coldly replied to his arrogant smugness. No, my goal wasn't to hit you with the bucket. Look carefully at your feet, you piece of trash. Hearing that, Asanuma looked down with a bewildered expression. My feet! He suddenly screamed in utter terror as his hand accidentally touched a glowing red magic circle, glowing brightly on the ground. Whoa, I see it! Tsukasa watched Asanuma from a distance, calmly explaining his plan. There was a trap here from the very beginning. The horrifying truth dawned on him. Asanuma stammered, trembling while sweat poured down like rain. The bucket was just a lure to get me into this trap. Utter fear was written all over his face. The system panel immediately appeared Death Saw, a running saw that slowly slices its prey. Just then a giant saw blade rose sharply from the ground. The saw blade slashed straight into Asanuma, making him scream in agony. Gah! He panicked, trying to block it with his hands, to stop the saw that was grinding into his body, but the trap's power was too great, violently flinging him into the air. He slammed hard onto the ground on his back, letting out a pained groan. Irk! Before he could even collect himself, another magic circle appeared right behind him, causing him to scream his lungs out. This time, from behind the towering wall, suddenly sprouted vicious spikes, impaling him in the back. He was pinned firmly to the wall. He groaned in extreme pain, trying to struggle free from the wall of spikes, screaming in despair, "Another trap! Argh!" He ran for his life, realizing his incredibly dangerous situation. This is bad. If this keeps up, my invisible shield will break. Finally, his arrogance and smugness completely vanished, replaced by utter terror clearly visible on his face. He frantically turned to flee, but stopped dead in his tracks before another crimson magic circle. Wait, no! There's a trap this way, too. The system panel displays a message, lightning fence. An electric barrier suddenly appears in mid-air, electrocuting its prey. Just as a whirlwind of electricity strikes down, he lets out a blood-curdling scream. Gah! Blasted by the extremely powerful current, Asanuma is knocked down, collapsing face first onto the ground. He pants wearily. This is bad. He realizes his life is hanging by a thread. I'm at my limit. If I take one more hit... Just as he plants his hand on the ground, another brilliant red magic circle instantly appears right beneath him. And so, a razor-sharp iron chain shot out aimed at the system panel, which cruelly announced unbreakable iron chain. The sturdy chains seized the intruder and sealed off their resistance. As a multitude of chains bound his body tight, he screamed in terror, "Here too!" But the only reply he received was Tsukasa's calm voice. "You don't recognize it," he said, standing there proudly. His blue eyes flashed with confidence as he explained that this room contained a series of chain traps. Starting from a single trap, many others would trigger in response. They would continuously attack the intruder. An extremely complex diagram appeared illustrating his detailed plan, a perfect mechanism designed to repel and take down even intruders with extremely high defense. Tsukasa looked at his enemy bound tightly within the blazing red magic circle and declared loudly, "And this is the finale for this trap combo." A giant crossbow was magically summoned from high above, aimed straight at the helpless and defeated Asanuma, who could only let out a terrified cry. Extreme fear took over him, causing him to scream in despair, "Arg! Somebody help me! I don't want to die!" The system panel immediately displayed its judgment. Hunting crossbow. A bloodthirsty crossbow that captures prey in a trap and hunts them down. As the arrow was charged with energy, Asanuma gritted his teeth, already knowing his tragic fate. My defense won't hold. I'll be pierced right through by that arrow. His defensive layer shattered to pieces, signaling only one terrible thing: death. The arrow was fired, tearing through the air. It shot forward like a bolt of lightning, throwing Asanuma back. The arrow plunged straight into the ground, barely missing him, but it destroyed and completely crushed two extremely valuable pieces of equipment. Asanuma lay unconscious on the floor, foaming at the mouth. Tsukasa calmly commented, "The arrow missed, but there's no need for a finishing blow." He stared at the completely shattered shield generator and mumbled, "Looks like the shield generator broke after taking so many death-level traps." "That's to be expected." Tsukasa slowly approached the trap detection machine, stomped on it, and said, "I'll destroy this trap detector too." "Looks like you couldn't handle it either." He looked down at the pathetic loser and delivered his final judgment. "You didn't realize there was a trap combo here, and you wasted the item's power. That's the reason for your failure." Having passed sentence, he decisively turned and walked away. A crack appeared on the far wall. His eyes were fixed on the glimmer of light coming from the crack, realizing it was the true treasure that countless traps had been protecting day and night. He walked toward the source of the light, saying in a joyful voice, "There it is, that light. It's what I've been looking for." He peered through the crack and cried out in delight, "I found it!" Inside the narrow opening, a bed appeared. Suddenly, the system panel displayed a notification, "Super rare hidden item S rank, hidden treasure chest." He stared at the carefully hidden chest, thinking to himself, "Appraising a hidden item. They're hidden somewhere in the dungeon. The hunters who can obtain them are extremely rare." And so Tsukasa reached out and opened the lid of the bed. His thoughts continued to flow. Every single one is a super rare item with such enormous value that they can instantly transform the power of anyone who possesses them. A brilliant, eerie blue light radiated from the chest, enveloping Tsukasa's figure and leaving him utterly surprised. An incredibly powerful surge of blue energy erupted, enveloping and lifting Tsukasa's body into the air. A series of system notifications appeared one after another. He murmured in shocked amazement, My magic power is skyrocketing. Magic power increased, increasing more and more. Is this an item that grants a massive boost to magic power?" He recalled his own terrible fatal weakness. "Until now, I've had a fatal flaw, a lack of magic power. Because of that, I couldn't create death-level traps instantly." He then looked at the glowing orb in his hand. The system notification displayed, obtained the Archmage's orb. Magic power increased by 727. He was filled with hope. But with this, I can do it. With this much magic power, I can create powerful traps. Tsukasa clenched his fist, an extremely confident smile on his lips as he declared decisively, "All right, let's test it out a bit." Right after that, a monster carrying a giant scythe appeared in the middle of a ruined city. Then a horde of insect-like monsters with glowing eyes emerged from the shadows. Tsukasa faced the horde and calmly assessed, giant insect-type monsters, huh? A worthy opponent. Without a moment's hesitation, he raised his hand forward, channeling all his newfound magic power, and shouted powerfully, "Create trap!" Countless purple magic circles appeared hovering in the air. Giant weapons aimed straight at the monster horde. The flaming weapons rained down, incinerating the monsters in a violent sea of fire. The system panel displayed a notification. Hell's Incinerator. Incinerates prey within range with terrifying firepower. Standing tall amidst the sea of fire, Tsukasa calmly commented, "Very good. The instant death trap appeared without any trouble. So this is the power of the Archmage's orb." Suddenly, his body sensed something unusual, and he turned his head back. Huh. Two men in Hunter Association uniforms appeared, utterly shocked by the scene before them. "What the hell is this? What happened to this monster's corpse? Unbelievable! It's been completely incinerated." They looked around, trying to find an explanation. To pull off a feat like this against a large-scale monster, is there an S-rank hunter nearby? From deep in the shadows, Tsukasa observed them, thinking to himself, "Those people look like the Hunter Association's defense force. They're here to evacuate the residents." Then another team member ran up, shouting urgently, "Hey, leave it. The evacuation guidance is complete. Hurry up and get to the baseball stadium." That person continued to command loudly, "The main unit has found the area's monster. The plan is an all-out attack on it. Is that clear?" Hiding behind a corner, Tsukasa perked up his ears and overheard the entire conversation. "The area boss has been found, huh? And it's at the stadium." He recalled a crucial piece of information about this type of leader monster. The area boss is the apex predator of the dungeon monsters. Naturally, they're very strong, but they are also the priority target for hunters. He continued to reason, if you defeat an area boss, all other monsters in the same area will vanish at the same time, and the entire area can be turned into a safe zone. Tsukasa stared intently at the backs of the Defense Force members, convinced that those rules must also apply to this area, even though it suddenly turned into a dungeon. The Defense Force rushed off at full speed, shouting, "The battle must have started already. Head to the stadium quickly." Tsukasa stepped out from his hiding spot, a grin full of excitement on his face. An area boss. Now that's a worthy opponent. I have no other choice but to go. The scene shifts to an enormous stadium. A giant armored monster roars, ready for battle. A very brave hunter charges forward, swinging his sword. He engages the monster in a head-on clash. His teammate shouts from behind, "Hey, don't get distracted by those small fry. The area boss will be here any second." Over here, a female hunter watched the other hunters fighting the monsters, a look of absolute shock on her face. "These are small fry? These massive monsters? No way. For low-rank hunters like us, this is the best we can handle." She looked forward, her face pale, and mumbled in utter fear. "In that case, the area boss must be..." A loud noise shook the entire ground immediately, startling the battle-hungry hunters and putting them on high alert. Then, a massive shadow smashed through the stadium dome and came crashing down. The monster opened its mouth wide, full of jagged, sharp teeth, as a red orb of energy began to coalesce, taking shape. It let out a world-shaking roar, revealing its true form as a giant dragon, causing the hunters to freeze in their tracks. A destructive blast of heat shot out, scorching the ground black, sending a hunter flying as he screamed in agony. "Enemy attack, run." The lucky survivors watched in horror as their comrade was brutally defeated. That heat ray's range and power are completely beyond imagination. Just then, a loud voice suddenly rang out from behind. "Hey!" It startled the two of them, who whipped around to look. In the distance, their captain was urgently giving orders. "Evacuate quickly! The stadium is collapsing! The area boss is here!" The remaining hunters scrambled in a panic, fleeing the crumbling stadium. "Hurry up, faster!" The dragon swung its massive tail, smashing the stadium grounds to bits. An unlucky hunter was hit by the falling debris and screamed in pain. "Arr!" The female hunter rushed over to her injured comrade, calling out desperately, "Senior!" She tried to help him up from amidst the rubble, but the monster's powerful tail was already looming right in front of them. The monster turned its head to look at them. Its crimson eyes gleamed with a deadly light. The female hunter looked up with an expression of utter despair. This heat ray! This colossal size, it's useless. We're no match for it. She was struck by the horrifying truth as the dragon was shrouded in flames. This is the ruler of the area, the absolute power of the area boss. From a nearby rooftop, Tsukasa saw the dragon's form and wondered, so that's it, huh? Without a moment's hesitation, he charged straight forward and yelled, "Just you wait!" So, area boss. An extremely confident smile spread across his face as he dashed forward at a dizzying speed. In just a moment, "I'm going to set a death trap for you!" he roared with conviction as he ran a grand plan forming in his mind. If I can defeat that monster, all the fighting in this area will end. Tsukasa stood majestically on a rooftop, ready for action. I'll end this with my Trapmaster powers. Meanwhile, at the stadium, the dragon roared and went on a wild rampage. It roared fiercely, displaying its dominant power. The battle grew more chaotic as hunters screamed in desperation. Dodge! You'll be crushed! Gulp! Where's the medical team? The captain tried to rally his troops, giving a loud command. Artillery squad, don't falter, shoot it down with a volley. A massive barrage of arrows was fired. They flew straight towards the dragon. The arrows exploded against the monster's tough scales, but didn't cause even a scratch. The captain watched with a face full of hope and extreme anxiety. Did we hit it? The dragon stood there majestically, completely unscathed. Its blood-red eyes gleamed with rage. From a distance, Tsukasa witnessed everything frowning as he realized it's auto-regenerating. It healed the wound instantly. He analyzed the boss's abilities thoroughly. Any minor injury is healed immediately, making the hunter's attacks meaningless. So unless we can land a fatal blow in a single strike, we can't beat it. He compared it to his previous enemy. Asanuma's invisible defense was a pain, but this opponent is even harder to take down because the damage doesn't accumulate. However, a fiercely determined smile appeared on his lips. But I can do this. This isn't an opponent I can't defeat. A very bold plan just flashed through my mind. If I use the trap I found in the city. Her eyes narrowed. Shouting to draw its attention, the female hunter decided to sacrifice herself as bait. She leaped to her feet and yelled, "Come and get me!" She gritted her teeth, telling herself, "I'm a hunter too. I might be useless in a fight, but at least I can be the bait while it's chasing me. The others can get away." But the giant dragon instantly turned towards her. A sphere of thermal energy began to form in its mouth, sending her into a state of utter panic. She blurted out, "Wait, a heat beam already?" She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for death. Giving up in despair, she thought, "This is it. I'm done for." But then she opened her eyes in utter astonishment. She suddenly found herself being carried in the arms of Tsukasa, the hero who had appeared and saved her in the nick of time. Whisked away in an instant, the panicked hunter cried out, "What? Where are we?" Tsukasa, perfectly calm, explained, while still carrying her, "I saved you using a magic teleportation trap, right before you were engulfed by that heat beam." All she could do was gape in confusion. He recalled the exact function of this type of trap. A trap that suddenly appears in a dungeon and teleports you to an unknown location. A dangerous teleportation. A space-time distortion. It unexpectedly sends the target somewhere else. Needless to say, it's usually just a nuisance. But he continued to consider its potential uses. If it could be controlled at will, it could be used for emergency rescues like this one. That's an effective way to use a raid trap. After he set her down on a chair, she hurriedly asked, "Who are you? What do you mean? I used a trap." But Tsukasa replied with great urgency, "Sorry, but I don't have time to explain." He turned, strode away, and gave a commanding order. "If you can use a radio, inform all teams." He then clearly stated his bold plan. "Tell them that from now on, a certain hunter will face the area boss alone and lure it into the city." Hearing this, she shot to her feet in protest. "Into the city? What are you talking about?" "What are? We lured it out here, specifically to prevent civilian casualties." Tsukasa dashed off. Without turning back, he calmly called out, "The evacuation is complete. Even if the city becomes a battlefield now, there won't be any casualties." And with that, he was gone. She was left shouting helplessly after him, "Hey, wait!" She stared at his retreating back, speechless with shock and confusion. Meanwhile, back at the stadium, the dragon was roaring and rampaging wildly. Its thunderous bellows asserted its absolute dominance. A hunter rushed over to his injured comrade, asking worriedly, "Are you okay?" He helped his teammate up, staring hopelessly at the monster. "Damn it, it's useless. With that regeneration ability, we're out of options. At this rate, we're all going to be wiped out." Suddenly, a sink fell from the sky and smacked the dragon right on the head. The system panel immediately displayed a message. Large falling sink. A large sink falls from a great height, causing humiliation to the target. As the monster stared blankly at the shattered sink on the ground, Tsukasa stood imposingly on top of a building. He taunted the monster. "That's right, look over here, you idiot. Is destruction the only thing you're good at?" He continued shouting to get its full attention. "If you're the king of this area, and then try fighting a hunter one-on-one. I'll take you on any time." Provoked into a frenzy, the dragon roared in fury. Another ball of thermal energy began to condense in its mouth as the other hunters watched. They cried out in alarm, "Oh no, another heat beam is coming. What is that hunter thinking? He's recklessly provoking the area boss." The dragon fired a devastating heat beam, incinerating everything in its path. Tsukasa swiftly dodged the heat beam as the other hunters watched in horror. "Whoa, he dodged it that attack. Does that hunter have a flight skill?" One of them quickly realized the truth. "No, that's not it." He pointed to a spring pad that had just appeared on the rooftop. "That thing. He used that spring pad trap to launch himself into the air." Tsukasa smiled to himself. "That's right. What I used was a raid trap. I used that spring pad to dodge the heat beam." Immediately, the system panel displayed a notification. "A frantic leap. A frantic trap that launches its captured prey into deadly lands." He continued to deduce. "If I use this trap at will, I can jump freely, so it's a support trap for aerial combat." He continued to operate it, creating other traps in mid-air and again mass-producing traps. Countless spring platforms appeared, allowing him to move with incredible agility in the air. He leaped from one platform to another, hurtling straight toward the dragon, which looked up in utter astonishment. Then Tsukasa landed firmly right on its head. The dragon roared, "Come on, you sector worm! I'll take you with me!" He created a warp trap binding it tightly to the monster and gently leaped away. Ignoring its frenzied rage, he headed straight for the custom-made trap in the city. He dashed at a dizzying, wind-tearing speed through the desolate, ruined streets. All the while, the frenzied dragon gave chase right behind him. At the operation command room, an urgent report blared over the radio. "Urgent report. The sector worm has left the baseball stadium." The captain continued his update to the female hunter's astonishment. "It is currently moving through and destroying residential areas." She listened intently, realizing the monster's path. "It's heading towards the power substation." On the ruined battlefield, Tsukasa was luring the monster. It's completely lost control, absolutely furious. Tsukasa ran while dodging a series of the dragon's devastating attacks, letting out a roar. He slid past in a spectacular fashion, narrowly avoiding the monster's fatal bite in a perilous moment. He glanced back to check on the situation. The monster roared, preparing to strike again, but Tsukasa was one step ahead. He created a magic circle and shouted, "Trap!" The trap exploded loudly. It momentarily hindered the monster. Tsukasa continued to use traps to create distance, while the dragon stubbornly persisted in its pursuit. He landed safely. After a short warp, he breathed a sigh of relief. "All right, warp successful." Tsukasa stood majestically before a giant power substation, thinking to himself, "Good, I've lured it here. I just need to go a little further to that large setup." He placed his hand on the ground and declared in a firm voice, "From here on out, I'm treating you to a magnificent feast." Suddenly, his hands generated a powerful magical current. Focusing all his power, he looked at the dragon and shouted, "Mass trap creation! Countless magic circles!" Colored purple appeared on the ground surrounding and trapping the dragon. From those magic circles, a series of iron chains with sharp tips shot out. The system panel displayed the text, "Grand Unbreakable Iron Chains," giant reinforced chains that capture intruders and suppress their resistance. As the chains bound the monster tightly, another magic circle appeared ready for the next attack. The system panel continued to display a notification, "Grand Iron Axe Pendulum." A pendulum holding an iron axe attacks prey within its range. As a giant axe swung down, it slashed powerfully into the dragon, leaving a deep, gaping wound. Immediately after that, a massive, sharp saw blade emerged from the ground. A system notification immediately popped up, "Grand Death Saw." A running saw blade that cut slow-moving prey to pieces. Tsukasa observed carefully from a distance, analyzing what he had just created. "These are oversized fatal-level traps. If this were just an ordinary monster, it would have been over." He stared as the dragon roared in pain, continuing to deduce, "But this thing has the ability to regenerate, so I knew from the start this wouldn't be the decisive blow. That's why I'm not done yet." He dashed toward the tightly bound monster, shouting, "I'm going to hit you with something even more brutal." By then, a giant radiant sphere of energy had gathered in his palm, ready to unleash the final blow. "Trap!" the system panel flickered continuously, signaling a devastating attack was about to come crashing down on the monster's head. Grand rockfall. A sudden rain of giant boulders poured down, aiming to crush the massive prey. However, the ferocious evil dragon was no pushover. It tilted its head back and unleashed a brilliant stream of flame, shattering the incoming boulders along with the series of traps laid out around it, not giving it a single moment to breathe. The notification panel immediately updated on the situation. Grand Hell Incinerator. Overwhelming firepower with terrifying might meant to incinerate everything in a wide area as countless magical flamethrowers simultaneously bombarded the dragon. As Tsukasa skillfully dodged the destruction, he yelled triumphantly, "How do you like that? A hell of falling boulders and a hell of blazing fire, a relentless non-stop chain of traps, isn't it?" He clenched his fists in extreme excitement loudly, proclaiming, "This is my true power, the most powerful trap combo I can create right now, also known as the main course. Enjoy it slowly. Let it seep into your very bones." He smirked arrogantly as he watched the dragon's tough scales sustain incredibly heavy damage. And once you're pushed into a corner, your regeneration speed can't possibly keep up. Everything was going exactly as predicted. The monster struggled, spread its wings, and shot straight up into the air, trying to find an escape route. That action prompted a cold judgment from Tsukasa. "So you're trying to escape by flying up into the sky?" He immediately landed on a spring platform, magic ready for an aerial pursuit. "Let's go!" Taking off, soaring straight into the deadly sky where a large-scale battle formation was waiting. He leaped up at a terrifying, soul-shaking speed. Sticking close to the shadow of the dragon as it soared upwards, the trap that would officially end your life was right there. Catching up to the target, Tsukasa threw a punch. Carrying a dazzling, brilliant blue stream of mana, he roared with power, activating the trap. The moment the spell was cast, the entire night sky was instantly pulled in. Covered by pitch-black clouds as roaring thunder converged, the unlucky dragon still flew headfirst straight into the center of the brilliantly glowing magic circle. Completely oblivious to the situation, a colossal bolt of lightning tore through the sky from high above, striking straight down without mercy. A cold system notification followed. Critical hit from the lightning spear confirmed. The concentrated bolt of lightning took the shape of a sharp spear and impaled the prey in midair. It pierced through the monster's tough scales, making it roar in agony. The dragon's massive body convulsed violently in midair. As a current of millions of volts surged through its entire body, Tsukasa stood firm on a magical platform, gazing upon his achievement with immense pride. That's right, this is the power of the lightning spear trap within this region. It's probably the largest scale attack trap he has. He recalled the moment he first fully understood this entire area. I was able to see it clearly from the very start. Ever since the first time I used the trap scan skill right after the dungeon break occurred. Having completely lost its ability to fly, the monster growled in utter agony before free-falling, plummeting toward the ground at a horrifying speed. Tsukasa landed on another magic circle, readying his stance for the next engagement, while the dragon slammed its body into the ground, creating a tremor. Amidst the violent quake, he glided smoothly through the air, landing safely as thick dust and smoke billowed up from the cataclysmic impact. Despite its numerous wounds, the ferocious dragon struggled to its feet, roaring and howling for a fair revenge, forcing Tsukasa to raise his guard. "So you're still stubborn enough to fight back? You should be getting ready to die." But he calmly gathered magical energy in his palm, supremely confident as he revealed his final finishing move, the most prominent feature of the spear trap. It wasn't just about its destructive power. It creates a trap. A giant axe blade suddenly appeared as the system coldly announced, "Iron Axe Pendulum." A pendulum carrying a giant iron axe attacks prey within its range. That sharp axe didn't strike the dragon directly, but instead it sliced, clean through the massive high-voltage power line tower standing nearby. Tsukasa began to explain the mechanism. It destroys the power tower, causing it to collapse and creating an extremely powerful electromagnetic pulse, releasing all the electrical energy. The ultra-high voltage of the entire area all at once. The lightning released from the magic spear connects directly to that enormous power source, creating a terrifyingly lethal phenomenon. And when it resonates with the lightning spear through the principle of a lightning rod, the entire city's ultra-high voltage supply will be sucked directly into the dragon's body. It caused the dragon to scream and howl in utter despair. A destructive energy quickly turned the monster's body black. Tsukasa delivered the death sentence in a steely voice. The ultra-high pressure energy? Its entire body is engulfed in flames, just like that burned to ashes. Zone neutralized. A colossal electromagnetic explosion ravaged the area, swallowing the dragon whole. This officially marked the end of the life-or-death battle. The high-pressure energy was created by resonating with the power of the transmission towers, channeling it into the lightning spear. That was the perfect finishing blow for that creature. Huddled down, shielding himself from the terrifying pressure of the explosion, Tsukasa quietly analyzed the situation. If this were just a normal dungeon, an attack like this would definitely not have worked. If I had relied solely on my own strength, I would have had absolutely no chance of winning. But he had been clever, knowing how to make the most of the advantages in the surrounding environment. Here I had a powerful weapon at my disposal called a transmission tower. For a monster, that was surely an artificial trap full of surprises. He placed a hand on the ground, kneeling completely safe and sound after emerging from the destructive storm. He stared at the giant dragon's corpse lying motionless at the foot of the power tower. He let out a sigh of relief as if a great weight had been lifted. If this whole world turned into a dungeon, then absurd situations like this could definitely happen. He gazed out at the panoramic view of the city bathed in the crimson glow of the sunset. He muttered, it was caught in a trap from the very beginning, the trap of having stepped into this world. Instantly, a series of system notifications popped up one after another. Dungeon clear complete. Level has increased significantly from level 4 to level 8. Tsukasa clenched his fists, a proud smile spreading across his sweat-drenched face. With this, the zone hunt is officially over. A surge of confidence filled his mind as he recalled the seemingly impossible feat he had just accomplished, clearing almost the entire zone all by himself. My strength is the real deal. The scene suddenly shifted to a painful memory. The brutal beatings from that bastard Asanoma came back in vivid detail. 2 long years had passed exactly like living in complete and utter darkness. He had to grit his teeth and endure the violence from Asanoma. He remembered the long nights spent buried in books, wasting the days of his youth to accumulate knowledge about dungeons that I didn't even know if I could ever enter. An image of him turning his back to answer the phone appeared, filled with a lingering guilt that he had caused his family too much worry. They were the only ones who still believed in me. Big brother, please don't overwork yourself, okay? Mom is really worried too. She says that any work related to dungeons is very dangerous. Or the moments when his heart felt like it would break, but his will to fight had never been extinguished. I appreciate your kindness, but I am 1,000 times sorry. Even so, I never once thought about giving up. The image of a lonely, isolated young Tsukasa, shunned by the crowd, appeared with stark clarity ever since that terrible day, when everyone around me started treating me like an outcast. I always told myself I had to stand tall and firm under that crimson sunset. Tsukasa wore the pensive expression of someone who had just turned the tables in a game of life and death. As he walked away, the dragon's massive corpse and all physical matter around it began to dissolve into dust, accompanied by a cold system notification. All monsters currently existing in the area will disappear along with the boss. The existential threat has been completely eliminated, and a temporary peace has returned to the city. He walked leisurely. Strolling down the path littered with ruins, he then glanced back over his shoulder, his sharp gaze fixed on a building in the distance. My next target is... Before him now was a towering yet eerily silent skyscraper amidst the desolate ruins, the Hunter Association's main communications facility. Turning on his phone's flashlight and shining it into the pitch-black hallway, he muttered, reassessing the current situation. Until just a moment ago, this communications facility was still malfunctioning, with communications lost due to the dungeon break. That's because all communication systems connecting to the outside world had been completely severed by its terrible influence. The beam of light stopped just before the sign for the communications room, illuminating a slim ray of hope. But now that the dungeon has been cleared, things will definitely be different. I'm sure the telecommunication satellites in the sky can be used again. He approached, observing and staring at the magnetic lock control panel on the door. There it is. Instead of swiping a card or painstakingly typing a security code like a normal person, he confidently raises his hand, gathering a vibrant purple mana, and proclaims, "Create Trap 1." A jolt of electricity zaps through short-circuiting and destroying the mechanical lock system, leaving a cold system message. Stun utility skill temporarily seals all target movements with a single, powerful electric shock. Grabbing the handle of the now completely disabled lock, he calmly turns it. My sincere apologies, but this is an emergency. I'm letting myself in. As soon as he stepped inside, he was met with rows of glowing blue screens, all bearing a very familiar symbol. So this is the Hunter Association's communications center. Seeing the central server equipment still lit up, he nodded in satisfaction. Good. The machines seemed to be running normally. He then plopped down into a chair. His fingers immediately flew across the keyboard with incredible speed, beginning his infiltration of the system. Now about that security. This level is a piece of cake. I can totally use this system without needing fingerprint authentication. With a single decisive keystroke, he successfully completed the security breach. The system went down during the communication failure. I'll just have to restart it like this. Staring at the text on the display, he tilted his head in confusion. Now, scanning current area. Please wait a moment. Scanning the area. Is it reading this region's information? The screen immediately returned the analysis results. Scan successful. He paused for a moment. Analyzing current area data. Difficulty ranked grade A. Area boss has been completely eliminated. Dungeon cleared. Dungeon cleared? That part is fine. But this area is rated grade A. Is the risk level really that high? Recalling the horde of terrifying giant armored monsters he'd encountered earlier, he came up with an answer to his own doubt. Well, there were some incredibly dangerous monsters like that roaming around. I guess that makes sense. His eyes narrowed as he saw the system begin to automatically expand its search parameters. Accessing Hunter Association network data, analyzing critical sectors within domestic dungeons. This screen isn't just showing my current location. It looks like it's also analyzing information from other areas too. A graphic simulation of buildings scrolled continuously across the screen, perfectly matching his theory. An area is a specific territory inside a dungeon. It refers to data fields divided by city. The horrifying memory of the dungeon break that swallowed an entire city flooded back, making him realize with a shock the terrifying scale of this event. The entire world has become a dungeon now. Countless areas have been created, and it's trying to analyze all of them. Looking at the world map as it struggled to connect to the network, that familiar, confident smile spread across the nerdy genius's face. If I apply the dungeon analysis algorithms that I developed myself theoretically, it should be able to map out all the sectors of the entire world. But the system panel flashed a red error message. Scan range limited to under 100 kilometers. He clicked his tongue in disappointment. Process ongoing. Calculation complete. It's done already. Calculation error. System cannot measure. Can only collect area data for a limited section. Only areas within a 100-kilometer radius. I guess the amount of data is just too massive. He leaned forward, planting both hands on the desk, accepting reality to focus on what was most important. I can't get information on all the areas in the world, but for now, as long as I know what's going on in the surrounding areas, that's good enough. His eyes drooped, his anxiety showing as the figures of his two most beloved people flashed through his mind. My family is separated, living in different places. My mother and my precious little sister. Extreme worry spurred his fingers to type furiously, searching for their coordinates. What the hell is happening in the areas where my family lives? At least tell me the danger level. Is it grade B or maybe grade C? The reflection from the large screen flickered continuously, showing the analysis results, making his whole body suddenly freeze as if turned to stone. The security camera feeds kept reporting the same terrifying level of disaster. Area name Sujitek area. Difficulty grade A. Status collecting data. Central area. Difficulty grade A. Status collecting data. His earlier calm demeanor completely vanished. In its place was sheer terror as his pupils contracted violently at what was displayed before his eyes. Tsukasa, in a panic, pushed himself away from the computer, screaming in utter desperation. Grade A. Everywhere is grade A. Every single area that can be analyzed has a high difficulty rating. Imagining the sight of a giant armored monster ruthlessly holding a man by the neck standing atop a mountain of corpses, he trembled, thinking of the most brutal, terrible possibility. Then, they've probably been completely destroyed. Is this city the only place that's still safe while the other areas have already... But just a second later, he suddenly snapped to attention, staring intently at the screen and yelling, "No, wait, this signal! They haven't been wiped out completely!" The system screen began to update continuously, displaying a secured area. Sujitek area. Difficulty grade A. Status, clear complete. A series of other feeds also updated simultaneously to a hopeful green status. Port area. Difficulty grade A. Status collecting data. Naria area. Difficulty grade A. Status collecting data. Takano area. Difficulty grade A. Status clear complete. Looking at the list of safe areas popping up one after another, he let out a huge sigh of relief. They succeeded. They beat them. Area bosses and dungeons cleared. In a few sectors, communication has been restored. Tsukasa's expression began to tense up. He was sweating bullets, but his eyes glinted with deep understanding. So that's how it is. The image of a blonde-haired female hunter swinging her sword lopping off a monster's head appeared vividly in his mind, a testament to humanity's unyielding strength. Anything but weak. Next was the incredibly sturdy back of a male hunter, his fists clenched, radiating a fierce will to fight even amidst this chaos. The others were still working to clean them up one by one. His eyes scanned the camera monitors, taking in the desolate, fiery streets as a thought on a much grander scale echoed in his mind. Don't tell me. It's actually begun, hasn't it? The new war for power in the aftermath of the dungeon break? Tsukasa leaned down over the control console. He carefully assessed the current situation. The areas where monsters had been completely wiped out and the raids were successfully completed. There were already many such places. He imagined formidable teams of S-rank hunters unleashing their peak magical power everywhere. He silently acknowledged that there were also incredibly skilled S-rank hunters in the other districts. I'm guessing this rapid progress is thanks to them. Lost in his analysis of the situation, the young man suddenly froze. Sweat beaded on his tense forehead. His hands immediately flew across the keyboard, typing furiously as he switched to his absolute #1 priority. No. The first thing I have to check is my family's safety. Suzudatsu District, where Mom lives. Suzudatsu District Communication Network. Confirmed, restored. Dungeons in the corresponding area have been cleared. Quickly pulling his smartphone from his pocket, he smiled as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Thank God. The dungeon's been cleared and the network is back online. I can finally call her. Mom! On a desolate, ruined street corner, where a car was engulfed in flames, the sound of a phone ringing echoed through the devastation, a beacon of hope. Tsukasa pressed the phone to his ear. Tsukasa frantically fired off a barrage of questions. Mom, what's the situation over there? Where are you right now? Is everything on your end okay? Hello? Tsukasa, is that you, sweetie? The tired voice of a middle-aged woman came through. Behind her, hunters were tending to the wounded. The hunters arrived and have somehow gotten the situation completely under control. But what about the central district where you are? Tsukasa breathed a sigh of relief, his fear vanishing as he heard his mother's voice safe and sound. Everything's fine here, nothing to worry about. I'm just so glad you're safe, Mom. More importantly, what about Siri? Have you been able to contact her? His mother's expression suddenly turned sorrowful and anxious. She stammered over the phone, The call only connected for a brief moment just now, but a cold system announcement echoed in his ear. The call was immediately disconnected due to signal interference. Tsukasa's face instantly hardened with tension. His free hand flew across the keyboard as he gripped the phone tightly, instructing his mother, Got it, Mom, don't you move from where you are right now, okay? The radiant smile of his little sister Siri flashed through his mind, and the protective fire in his chest blazed intensely. Mom is safe. Now it's just my little sister Siri. Is the signal still jammed over there? The genius's 10 fingers flew across the system, searching for the area where she lived. The high school dorms. That has to be somewhere in the West District. The screen immediately displayed a report on the target, but the results were anything but encouraging. West District target area. Dungeon, not cleared. However, the system has received a highly unusual report from local hunters. He stared. He stared unblinking at the glowing computer screen, sweating as he analyzed the situation. Just as I thought, the dungeon still hasn't been cleared. What the hell is this? An unusual report. The strange text from the local hunters appeared in detail on the screen. West District has not been fully cleared. 4 area bosses are active and running rampant. However, reinforcements have arrived. The crisis has passed. We have seized complete control over this district. After reading those contradictory lines, Tsukasa's eyes widened in utter disbelief. The screen automatically switched to a live video broadcast. A muscular man with aggressive purple hair declared forcefully, "We are members of the Hunter Association's West District branch." No, that was only true up until a moment ago. We are no longer the pawns of the Hunters Association. Realizing the insane truth of what was happening, Tsukasa's pupils constricted in fury. This isn't a broadcast. From the official Hunters Association headquarters, someone has hijacked the signal. The rebel leader roared with manic ambition, dealing a fatal blow to the world order that had just begun to recover. We, the citizens of the West District, hereby declare our freedom from all outside control and interference, and announce the establishment of a completely independent nation. The founding of a post-catastrophe independent nation. He stared wide-eyed, realizing the gravity of the situation. He gasped in horror. The West District! Isn't that where my little sister Siri is? And that same district just declared its independence before he could even cry out. Suddenly he was startled and whipped around as the danger alarm blared relentlessly. Through the frosted glass of the control room door, blurry dark figures. We're trying to break down the door to get inside, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. The control room lock has been destroyed. Intruders. Knowing he couldn't stay for a direct confrontation, Tsukasa clicked his tongue in regret and quickly raised a hand, gathering magical energy to escape. My information gathering has been delayed. I guess I'll have to stop here, creating a trap. The scene abruptly shifts to the highest floor of the silent building labeled Rooftop, Hunters Association Communication Base. A complex purple magic circle flashes brilliantly on the antenna platform, preparing to activate. The teleportation trap mechanism forcefully launches Tsukasa's body, free-falling towards the safe zone as the system coldly confirmed chaotic leap, a scrambling trap that throws the target to a random location. He clung tightly to the rooftop railing, panting heavily after the emergency escape. Somehow I managed to pull off an emergency escape. But now that my mana is depleted, this shabby trap is all I can manage. Faint magical sparks flickered around him, assessing his condition. Thanks to a super rare item, my magic stat has increased significantly. But that just means my maximum capacity has increased. The image of the exhausting battle with the dragon flashed vividly in his mind. Continuously creating traps consumed a corresponding amount of mana. Because of the fierce battle with the area boss, my mana is on the verge of being completely drained. He gazed down at the city engulfed in blazing flames, clenching his fists anxiously. As if this isn't bad enough. I need to grind more levels and increase my capacity, my maximum mana. Suddenly, the phone in his hand vibrated violently, signaling an incoming call. He quickly looked down, staring at the glowing screen. The words "incoming call" appeared. His heart pounded in surprise. A call from Siri. He immediately pressed the phone to his ear, shouting with extreme worry, "Siri, please be safe." His little sister's voice came through choppy and strained through the static. "Big brother, can you hear me? How's the city over there?" Tsukasa frowned, wondering, is this crackling sound due to signal interference? Standing amidst the ruins, he tried to shout loudly to reassure his sister. "It must be because that area hasn't been cleared yet. I'm fine over here, Siri. What about you? Are you in any trouble?" The static grew thicker, but Siri's voice struggled to convey reassurance. "I'm okay. You don't need to worry. It's really safe here, so you just..." The call suddenly disconnected completely, leaving Tsukasa standing stunned, staring at the now black screen. He pieced together his sister's contradictory words and that crazy, independent report. Doubt exploded within him. Don't worry. It's safe there. Even though there are still monsters present over there. And that incredibly suspicious message sent by that so-called local hunter group. I absolutely can't just turn a blind eye and walk away after seeing something like that. He stomped his foot on the ground, creating a whirlwind that kicked up dust and debris. I can't let my depleted mana stop me now. Despite his body protesting, Tsukasa was determined to muster his strength and activate a brilliant purple magic circle for teleportation. "Siri, just wait for me. I'm coming to see for myself that you're safe." The scene shifts to the Hunter Facility's temporary shelter, where a chaotic crowd is being hastily guided to evacuate. "Injured civilians, please come this way. Bring a stretcher over here. We have someone who's critically injured." A hunter in charge of logistics was hurriedly directing tasks. "Move it and load up the supplies. We desperately need these for the evacuees now." The guy in charge of the storeroom suddenly froze, staring blankly at an empty container. "Huh, that's weird. The mana recovery potions should be here. Are a few bottles missing?" Meanwhile, the hidden culprit Tsukasa was tilting his head back, chugging a shimmering blue liquid. He mentally justified his act of borrowing. "I borrowed this without asking, but anyway, it was going to be distributed to the hunters to use eventually. It'll be fine, as long as I work hard enough to make up for it." Draining the last drop, he tilted his chin and let out a refreshing sigh, feeling the power surge back into him as he looked at the bar. The energy gauge in the system was full. He smiled confidently. "All right. My mana is fully restored. I won't have to worry about running out for a long while." A three-dimensional map appeared, in his mind, tracing a thorny path. "Right now, I'm stuck in the Central District and Siri is in the West District. Between us are two other districts, Kawabe and Iwaya." Striding under a streetlight, he frowned, calculating the risks ahead. And according to the info I just got at the facility, both the Kawabe and Iwaya districts haven't been cleared of dungeons yet. It's going to be a tough journey, and fighting monsters is unavoidable. He looked at his hand, glowing with his newly replenished mana. A hint of anxiety crossed his face. Can I really do this with my current stats? Crossing this dangerous area all by myself. The memory of the ferocious giant dragon charging at him sent a chill down his spine. If I'm unlucky enough to run into another area boss, I'll be in big trouble. My mana might really run out this time. He clenched his fists decisively. He cast aside all his surrounding fear and weakness. To prevent that from happening, I have to... His eyes lit up, burning with a steady fire of determination, ready to face the challenge. Level up, to increase my absolute mana capacity. Standing before the invisible wall separating the two districts, he took a deep breath. All right, from this point on is the Kawabi district. I'll move forward slowly while grinding levels or doing whatever else is necessary. His foot. He stepped firmly through the blue light barrier, officially entering the deadly zone. A brilliant surge of mana erupted, enveloping his body. The system announced that the bookish young man's first personal quest had officially begun his first mission since his awakening. The power of a dungeon-crossing hunter. The panoramic view of the city from above was now nothing but the smoldering, collapsing ruins of what it once was. The world, peaceful just a few days ago, had now become a dungeon-like zone fractured into numerous extremely dangerous areas with the system map constantly flashing. It flickered, marking the boundaries of survival. Even when peace returned to one area, another wicked area boss would appear sitting comfortably in a neighboring zone. The fierce war against the horde of monsters continued to drag on. Tsukasa strode alone, silently advancing deep into the quiet but perilous night of the new world. Up ahead was Kawabi District, an area where the dungeon had not yet been conquered by hunters, meaning it was a place where monsters could appear and swarm at any moment. But just as he set foot on the deserted road, a cheerful voice suddenly rang out, heralding the appearance of two strange men. "Oh, look who's strolling over. He looks like a hunter just like us." The two men approached with incredibly fake, friendly smiles to probe him. "Hey, did you find any rare or valuable items? It's crawling with monsters up ahead and we don't have enough gear." Tsukasa shook his head and waved his hand, replying calmly, "Unfortunately, no." The reply made one of them smirk faintly, revealing his dark intentions. "I see. Everyone we meet says the same thing." Instantly dropping the act, the hunter swung his arm forcefully, extending 3 sharp metal claws from his gloves. "In tough times like these, I guess we have no choice, huh?" Feeling the cold, sharp, killing intent aimed at him, Tsukasa's pupils immediately constricted with vigilance. The claw-wielding man lunged forward with a crazed expression, threatening his prey. "If you won't hand them over willingly, we'll have to get our hands dirty and take them by force. We're going to have to hurt you pretty badly." With incredible sharp reflexes, he quickly somersaulted backward, narrowly dodging the whistling slash that grazed past his face. Tsukasa ignored the scratch that was trickling, fresh blood on his cheek, gritting his teeth as he realized the rotten nature of these scumbags. Without giving their prey a chance to escape, both thugs simultaneously leaped into the air to surround him. But they had made a grave mistake. They picked the wrong opponent. Tsukasa casually raised his hand, which was glowing with purple mana, and shouted loudly, "Create trap." An immense, incredibly complex magic circle immediately opened right above the head of the aggressively charging hunter. From within the magic circle, a giant weight went into freefall, crushing the two fools into the pavement. Arg! Along with the cold system notification, disaster weight, a super heavy giant weight, suddenly appears and drops straight onto the target. Tsukasa stood with his arms crossed, calmly watching the two thugs who were crushed flat, pinned to the ground, unable to move even a finger. His eyes stared at the defeated men, his mind filled with calculations. "If I finish them off right here, maybe it'll be just like when I defeat a monster. I'll get experience points." He pondered thoughtfully, assessing the cruelty of this new world. That possibility isn't zero. If that's true, I'll need to work hard and keep a close eye on the movements of hunters who have become degenerate and violent. However, looking into the distance where explosions were blazing, destroying rows of buildings, he drew a very clear line. But the only thing I'll hunt are monsters. I don't need to bother dealing with humans when just defeating a large number of monsters is enough. Wiping his blood from his face with his arm, the familiar, confident smile of a master strategist returned to his lips. For that greater purpose, I have to test it out. Grind for experience points by using that trap. The scene immediately shifted to the plaza of Kawabi District, where robot monsters were continuously firing brilliant laser beams, devastating the forest. Amidst the chaos, a very unlucky female civilian ran for her life in a panic, trying to escape the deadly barrage. Just as it was about to target and pursue her, a robot suddenly froze and snapped its head in another direction, attracted by a strange sound. From inside a thicket of bushes, a mischievous-looking wooden statue was continuously puffing its cheeks, gracefully playing a flute. Carefully hidden on a high tree branch, Tsukasa smiled down at his creation, while the system introduced it, flute-playing doll, a doll that plays a flute to playfully lure monsters. He silently evaluated the effectiveness of the hidden lure. A single note from the flute, a trap to invite monsters. This will definitely gather them up. Looking at the swarm of mindless, bewildered robots gathering around the wooden statue, he silently counted them. From what I can see, there are 4 of them. Not quite enough to properly grind EXP, but without any further hesitation, he immediately channeled mana into the magic circle on his palm to begin the bloody hunt. Create Trap Bzeet. Sensing something unusual was happening, the robots snapped their heads up, letting out a resounding alarm. Bzeet. From beneath the ground, giant iron bars carrying a deadly purple electric current suddenly shot upwards. The iron stakes flew into the sky, forming a giant barrier that completely trapped the monster horde inside a magic cage. An incredibly sturdy magical lock appeared and slammed shut, sealing the only exit. Trapped inside, the horde of robots swung their arms, wildly smashing around in desperation. Krsk! Iron cage. A sturdy cage that completely traps the prey. He slowly walked towards the imprisoned monsters, thinking about his perfect plan. That's right. Lock them tightly in a cage like this. A sinister smile spread across Tsukasa's face. He continued to concentrate the brilliant mana in his hand to prepare the next step. Let's begin. Create Trap. As the spell was activated, a giant magic mirror suddenly descended from the sky into the middle of the iron cage, emitting a blinding light that left the monsters bewildered and confused. Model. A curious robot leaning in close to the shiny surface of a mirror jumps back in shock upon seeing its own reflection. Suddenly, the mirror vibrates violently and emits a series of bizarre rays of light. The mindless machine tilts its head in confusion, and in the next moment, its reflection steps right out into the real world, causing the original monster to recoil in terror. Meanwhile, the system's voice explains the overpowered function of the item. The copy mirror, a reflective mirror designed for the purpose of duplicating monsters. Tsukasa's eyes glowed with a bewitching purple light. He smirked, pleased with his own grotesque invention. A trap designed to duplicate monsters, truly the worst. Looking at the horde of monsters bewildered by their own illusions, he silently made his assessment. In a normal situation, this is the last thing you'd ever want to run into. But he threw his hands high in the air, frantically pushing his magic power to make the mirror work at full capacity. Inside this cage, it doesn't matter at all. Keep duplicating, you monsters. New robots appeared, continuously crushing against each other, but Tsukasa still wasn't satisfied. More duplicate, even more, until this cage is completely packed. He watched with excited, wide eyes as the number of decoys increased at a dizzying rate, revealing the true purpose behind this suicidal trap. The more monsters I defeat, the more experience points I get back. This is the perfect setup for that exact purpose. His smile now looked even more terrifying than the monster horde. He steeled his resolve to reap the rewards. I'll defeat and wipe out every last one of you at the same time, and become even stronger. Inside the sturdy iron cage, now packed tight, the machines shrieked, scraping and grinding against each other without a single gap to spare. Mechanical screeching. Seeing that the time was ripe, Tsukasa took a step back, pointing his hand straight up at the pitch-black sky. And once the cage is full, for the final act of this setup, a giant purple magic circle materialized, hovering over and covering the entire cage, signaling the arrival of doom and destruction, causing the trapped monsters below to panic. Amidst their moans and screeching, the giant magic circle, carrying an overwhelming source of energy, descended upon its target with wind-tearing speed. Trapped and locked in the cramped iron cage, the horde could only look up at the god of death descending upon them in absolute helplessness. Screeching, a pitch-black heavy weight came crashing down, crushing the entire robot horde into a pile of scrap metal, accompanied by the system's incredibly cruel announcement, "Great Calamity Weight." A large, weight suddenly appears and strikes the prey. Tsukasa clenched his fist against his chest, letting out a soft sigh of relief at the perfectly executed destructive combo chain. Got 'em all! A finishing move using a trap. Standing defiantly before the massive smoking iron box, he smugly and proudly named his tactic. Duplicate the monsters inside a cage and then Crush them all at once to farm experience points. I'll call it an experience box. I successfully defeated tens, no hundreds of them. With this setup, my experience points will skyrocket. Before he could even finish the sentence, a series of brilliant blue notification panels danced before his eyes like a downpour of rewards. Received 20 experience. 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 A celebratory sound of honor rang out along with a brightly lit level up notification, causing Tsukasa's eyes to widen in surprise. He joyfully analyzed and admired his achievement, but he suddenly froze when he saw an unfamiliar notification frame. With this much experience gained, so leveling up is a given, of course, but acquired a new skill. What a new skill. Reading the description of the new skill's power, his face filled with utter astonishment. The new skill was called Trap Domination. It allows the user to control trap monsters. Trap Domination! The idea of taming monsters flashed through his mind, opening up a whole new horizon of completely new tactics for him. Subjugate. And tame, does that mean it's a skill that lets me turn monsters into allies at my side? Deep in thought, he suddenly heard a clattering sound at his feet and glanced to the side. A battered, half-bodied robot monster was trying to drag itself across the grass, giving him an incredibly bold idea. A lucky survivor that escaped the devastating attack from earlier. What a perfect time to test out my new skill. Tsukasa flashed an extremely fierce smile, channeling his magic to create a pale green magic circle hovering over his palm. Should I give it a little test run? He extended his index finger, pointing it straight at the scrap monster, and launched the magic circle forward. The green magic erupted, and the Lord of Traps grandly declared his newfound power. Trap Domination. He swung his arm, launching a brilliant stream of green magic. It shot straight into the body of the battered machine lying motionless on the grass. However, the magic suddenly deflected and bounced back, causing Tsukasa to cry out in alarm. It bounced right off? The skill didn't work at all. After a moment of shock, he looked at the notification panel and realized the problem. So that's it. It's only effective on trap monsters. Requirement for activation: the monster must be trap-related. Huh. He let out a sigh, looking down at the mindless robot, lying on the ground as he recalled the magic circle. So that's why it doesn't work on normal monsters like this. Using a skill here really is a waste. Without further hesitation, he immediately shouted, "Create trap!" and summoned a magic sword from above. It descended straight onto the target. The system coolly announced, "Finishing sword has delivered the final blow." He stared at the glowing corpse, then planned his next move. I still have to worry about my little sister Siri, and now that the level grinding is settled for now, I should scout this area carefully before moving on. Standing before the site of a town street connecting to a dense forest, he took a deep breath and resolutely stepped forward. Anyway, I've been putting this off, but the time has come where I have to do it. He bent down, pressing his palm, which was crackling with blue electrical sparks, onto the withered grass. The magic power spread out into a brilliant diagram as he confidently activated the skill. Trap Scan. Skill description: Trap Scan. Searches for pre-existing traps in the area. A three-dimensional heat map quickly materialized, enveloping his entire body to help him analyze the current situation. Now, what the hell is going on in this area? Where are the potential threats, and what type are they? His attention was immediately drawn to a large building with countless flashing red warning dots. It was a place where trap systems were incredibly dense. This building is a museum. He squinted in surprise as he looked more closely at the tunnel system hidden deep beneath the museum's structure, peering deeper and deeper inside. What the hell is this? An underground passage several kilometers long. Tsukasa's eyes lit up with a mix of surprise and curiosity upon discovering a potential shortcut. A structure like this exists underground. Could this be? Realizing it was the perfect route to cross the dangerous area, he smirked, pushed himself to his feet, and stood up. I get it now. He glanced into the silent distance. There's no other choice. I have to get to that museum and fast. Without delay, he started walking. With extreme caution, he advanced deeper into the edge of the forest. The silent darkness began to close in as Tsukasa carefully navigated through the towering, quiet trees. Suddenly, he flinched and quickly ducked behind a large tree trunk when he spotted something highly unusual. Before his eyes was a body of water, a vast expanse shimmering with specks of magical light, a lake in the middle of the forest. It's pretty big. he murmured, comparing it to the map in his head while raising his guard and scanning the area. The museum must be located somewhere around here. Passing through the rows of trees, the white glass structure finally came into view, standing tall under the dim moonlight. There it is. He moved closer to the shattered glass doors, confirming his suspicions. The underground passage lies deep beneath this building. If my intuition is correct. Passing through the doorway, he strode with firm, echoing steps into the museum's desolate main hall. Breaking out in a cold sweat, he glanced around. His intuition was screaming that danger was lurking nearby. Judging from what the images from my trap scan skill are showing me, this place is packed with all sorts of traps. He tiptoed cautiously, step by step, down the pitch-dark hallway. His eyes darted around, constantly scanning the area. I'll have to move with extreme caution so I don't trigger any of them. Suddenly, he stopped dead in his tracks and confidently pointed toward a wooden chest that was quietly inching backward across the floor. Hey, you little pest over there. Scurrying all over this place like that. You've been way too obvious. Seizing the perfect opportunity, Tsukasa channeled brilliant blue mana into his palm, preparing to cast Tame Trap. The chest panicked, flinging its lid wide open. It revealed a set of razor-sharp teeth and terrifying, bulging eyes, letting out a bizarre hiss, "Gachoo!" as the stream of magical power aimed for it. A blinding light enveloped the chest, rendering it motionless. Tsukasa watched anxiously as it unfolded. It's working. It's taking effect. That means he calmly exposed the strange object's true identity, just as I thought. That thing is a mimic, a cunning monster disguised as a treasure chest. Memories of the monster's characteristics surfaced. He explained the creature's mechanics. It disguises itself as a treasure chest and ambushes any hunters who get close. Its very existence is a trap, a completely different kind from your average monster. His eyes shone with the confidence of someone who knew all the rules of the game. I was able to see it clearly, ever since I scanned this area. I mean, in reality, there's a monster-type trap hiding in here. He smiled smugly and slowly walked over to the chest, which was smoking after being hit by the spell. In any case, the taming process was a success. The image of a glowing blue eye icon flashed brightly, marking that the contract had been successfully established. It will officially become my ally and... But before he could finish his sentence, the mimic chest suddenly emitted a thick cloud of white smoke, trembled violently, then launched itself at Tsukasa. He jumped back in shock, his face twisting in utter panic as he saw the monster, its mouth full of jagged teeth, wide open, charging straight for him. It's attacking me. The skill didn't work at all. Damn it, I let my guard down, I'm a goner. The heavy chest aggressively pounced on Tsukasa, slamming into him with immense force and knocking him off balance. He fell backward, his back hitting the cold stone floor with a loud thud. A thick cloud of dust billowed up. Tsukasa winced. Clutching his body, he whispered in utter shock, "Huh." His eyes widened in stunned disbelief as he stared at his attacker. Contrary to its bloodthirsty appearance just moments ago, the mimic chest was now gleefully wagging its long purple tongue. Its large, round eyes sparkled, blinking, just like a puppy overjoyed to see its owner. Pinned down by the chest lying on his stomach, Tsukasa stared blankly at the ceiling. His mouth hung open as he mumbled in complete and utter confusion. Huh. He shot up, drenched in sweat, as he saw the bizarre chest using its dark, gnarled, claw-covered legs to cling tightly to his shirt. What the hell is this thing? The chest's eyes lit up, sparkling like stars, making it look strangely harmless. Tsukasa squinted, staring at the creature as it wagged its long tongue just like a puppy. He wondered, is it trying to get attached to me? The chest gave a wide grin, rubbing against his hand affectionately like a person. Keon, realizing the absurdity of it all, gave a strained smile and threw his hands up in surrender to the creature that had nearly eaten him just moments ago. It does look a little creepy, though, but screw it. At the very least, it seems the domination was a success. He walked over and threw open the secret hatch hidden in the floor. With one hand holding the hatch open, he gestured with the other, beckoning to his new companion. Now that I've confirmed the power and effect of the new skill, it's time to head into the underpass. Having made his declaration, he turned decisively and carefully stepped down the dark stairs while the mimic trotted right at his heels. Standing before the long, sloping corridor that stretched deep into the abyss, he pondered thoughtfully. There's no way a passage of this enormous scale was already here. He walked on the silent, cold square tiles, his eyes constantly analyzing the space. This underground area was probably created when this entire district turned into a dungeon. And whenever a space like this is created, it always has some kind of purpose. Recalling the terrifying sight of the giant dragon monsters blocking the way on the surface, he offered himself a hopeful theory. For example, it could be a secret passage that acts as a shortcut. If I move on the surface, monsters are everywhere, and every step turns into a tough battle. This underground path was created to bypass all that trouble and cross the entire area in one go. He regained his focus, sweat pouring down as he narrowed his eyes, wary of the chilling atmosphere that surrounded him. Anyway, that's just a theory of mine. I can only hope I'm not completely wrong. He stood before a large, majestic door lit by two ghostly blue torches. He sighed, steeling himself. It seems that in exchange for moving faster, this path is also packed with serious dangers. He spoke to the chest standing obediently by his side. Mimic? No. I should give you a proper name. Leaning down quickly to pat the chest's head, he gave a warm, friendly smile and officially bestowed a new identity upon his strange companion. From today on, your name will be Mimi. The chest squinted both its eyes in joy, its tongue quivering with excitement at its new name. He stared at its goofy, adorable expression and couldn't help but laugh. What's gotten into you? Are you really that happy just because I gave you a name? Regaining a serious expression, he lifted its chin in his hand, knelt, and instructed his teammate. Anyway, Mimi, get ready. From here on, it's going to be an extremely dangerous journey. Hearing the command, Mimi immediately twisted and posed, flexing its muscles, its face fierce as it let out a roar as if trying to prove its strength. Seeing its boundless confidence, Tsukasa smiled and nodded in satisfaction. I get it. You're going to help me, right? Then I have nothing to worry about anymore. Let's go. He reached out, took hold of the cold bronze door handle, and decisively pushed this door open. The heavy-looking door slowly creaked open, revealing a large room bathed in the dim light of the torches. But the most terrifying thing was the giant black shadow looming in the middle of the path, a statue of a warrior in full armor with a greatsword planted imposingly on the ground. It stood there majestically, radiating a swirling dark aura. The flickering firelight glinted off the intricate patterns on the cold armor. Tsukasa tiptoed closer, carefully assessing the situation. There's only a single statue in this room, and my final destination is the exit door over there. Behind him, the innocent-looking Mimi clattered along its steps, making dry sounds on the tile floor. He carefully slipped past the silent statue. His eyes never left his target ahead. Meanwhile, Mimi continued to follow closely at his heels. Suddenly, his gaze sharpened, and he whipped his entire body around when he felt that something was wrong. A deafening, grating sound of scraping metal rang out as the giant warrior statue suddenly swung its gleaming greatsword, tearing through the air. It aimed to slash straight down on the intruder's head. With seemingly impossible reflexes, Tsukasa immediately clapped his hands together, forming a brilliant purple defensive magic circle, ready to receive the fatal blow. Just in the nick of time, a giant stone wall instantly rose up, blocking the path between him and the deadly blade. Along with it came a system notification stone wall. A stone wall to act as an obstacle, but the statue's power was terrifyingly immense. The blade was incredibly sharp and coldly split the stone defense with absolute ease. A deafening crash echoed as Tsukasa had to use both hands to desperately summon a purple magic shield to block the aftershock of the attack. He clenched his jaw, enduring the pressure and silently confirming his own judgment. Just as I thought. This is a trap monster. A bronze statue that turns into a monster when you get too close. The memory from moments ago suddenly returned. He broke into a cold sweat, glancing at the enemy's shadow. My own scan had already detected a trap monster hiding in this room, and an extremely dangerous one at that. Looking at the statue's eyes, which were now glowing with an eerie blue light, he explained his desperate gamble of a strategy. However, I couldn't use my domination ability on it while it was still in statue form. That's why I deliberately approached it to provoke it into transforming. But the colossal steel giant gave him no time to breathe. It instantly vanished on the spot and reappeared behind him. He hastily swung, his arm creating a new defensive shield stronger than an iron wall. A steel barrier blocked its path, but the monster was incredibly ferocious. It fiercely slashed, shattering the shield to pieces. Metal fragments flew everywhere. Tsukasa had to fall back, his face filled with utter astonishment. The power of these things is really too strong. He put power into his legs, pushing off the stone floor to slide back and maintain a safe distance from the Reaper's blade. The warrior statue returned to its ready stance, its killing intent blazing as it aimed squarely at the small prey before it. Suddenly, the seemingly heavy steel mass glided forward at a terrifying speed, leaving countless afterimages that left Tsukasa utterly stunned. It wasn't just fast. This movement is it using footwork to move in random trajectories? His eyes darted around, trying his best to keep up with the figure. The enemy moved in a zigzag pattern, and the true purpose of these erratic movements was his pupils contracted violently as a chilling presence suddenly appeared right behind his neck. Without a moment's hesitation, he spun around and unleashed an ultimate defensive skill right into his blind spot. A diamond block, a shield made of diamond, obstructed the blade's path. The sword slammed directly into the dazzling, sparkling diamond block with terrifying force. Tsukasa gritted his teeth, struggling to hold it back. It was specifically targeting his back. Using the rebound force, he leaped back, escaping the monster's attack range, and smiled with a calculated look. But if my opponent is really a trap monster, I won't have to fight it head-on. Green magic power erupted brilliantly around him as he pointed a finger straight at the target. He roared with confidence. As long as this skill hits, trap domination! A bolt of green magic tore through the air, aimed directly at the head of the charging warrior statue. The magic bolt struck the metal helmet, bursting into a brilliant flash of dazzling green light. He excitedly pointed, confirming his success. A direct hit, but his smile instantly froze when he saw the statue was completely unscathed. It didn't activate. Could it be that my domination power has been nullified? From a safe corner behind a stone pillar, little Mimi was trembling in fear, peeking out with one eye to watch her master getting thrashed, her face filled with anxiety, assessing the situation. Tsukasa broke into a cold sweat and came to a conclusion. I get it now. My skill level is still too low. I haven't accumulated enough proficiency with this new skill yet. That means, unlike with Mimi, it'll never activate with just one hit against a high-level monster. Casting aside his fear, he lowered, his center of gravity bracing himself for a lightning-fast engagement. In that case, he shot forward, continuously firing streams of green magic bullets from both hands. I just need to hit it repeatedly if I can land consecutive hits. Trap domination will eventually activate. But the Steel Warrior once again displayed its phantom-like speed, gliding back and forth just like a ghost. It effortlessly dodged the entire barrage of magic bullets. Tsukasa ran for his life, gritting his teeth in frustration at the enemy's mobility. This is bad. It's almost impossible to hit an opponent that moves this fast. So that first hit was just a lucky shot. He stopped, his eyes focused with extreme intensity to analyze every footstep, every afterimage of the monster toying with him, reading its trajectory, its path. If I can read its movement patterns, I'll be able to land the skill. Sweat drenched his forehead, his breathing rapid, but the brain of the genius trapper was working hard, working at full capacity. Think, there has to be a way. Finally, he placed his hand on the ground, which began to glow with magic power. Tsukasa decided to change his strategy. I have no other choice but to set a trap and force it to reveal itself. Just as the monster swung its sword and charged, he quickly somersaulted backward and shouted, "Create trap!" The steel giant immediately closed in behind him, raising its gleaming greatsword high. It swung the blade straight down with a force that tore through the air. However, from the magic circle that appeared on the ceiling, a giant basin of water suddenly poured down right on the monster's head, accompanied by a sarcastic system message, "Water basin drop, water attribute." A simple basin dropping water. The steel monster suddenly froze, completely soaked and dripping in a speechless silence. Furious at being mocked, the statue swung its sword repeatedly, forcing Tsukasa to constantly retreat, somersaulting once to maintain a safe distance. He landed firmly, steadying himself with his hands. He stood up, looking at his opponent, who was seething with killing intent, and smirked. Heh, looks like I pissed it off. Can't blame it, though. After all, it was just a prank trap. The enemy increased its speed, becoming a blurry shadow that flickered through the room. However, Tsukasa remained unfazed, confidently facing the Reaper's scythe. But thanks to soaking the place, his gaze immediately shot down to the stone floor, where the traitorous water streaks clearly marked the path it took across the floor. His sharp eyes followed every single damp footprint. To locate the enemy's figure, I can see it now, and its movements. By silently following these water trails, I can completely read its movement patterns. Grasping its trajectory, he pointed a finger glowing with blue 6 mana at its predicted location, aiming for where it was headed now. Dominate lightning trap. The blue 6 magic bullet tore through the air, intercepting the monster's incredibly high-speed movement. The stream of magic struck its helmet head-on. The statue's armor shattered, exploding into a brilliant flash of light. But it didn't end there. Tsukasa continuously fired shots with both hands, his eyes burning with determination. It's not over yet. Take this. For this skill, Dominate trap, to take full effect, the statue has to be continuously hit by these mana blasts. If I keep firing skill shots repeatedly, the effect will stack and accumulate. He roared, pouring all his strength into firing spells like a machine. Dominate. Despite its efforts to defend itself, the steel monster began to falter. Under this rain of blue 6 bullets, it'll eventually be pierced no matter what. The bookish young man's face lit up with extreme excitement as he stood before his valuable prey. I'll do whatever it takes to make this high-level monster my powerful ally dominate. Behind a stone pillar, little sheep Mimi trembled in fear, holding her head as she witnessed her master frantically unleashing a storm of magic that flooded the entire room. After a long barrage of spells that left him utterly exhausted, Tsukasa stood panting pathetically. Meanwhile, the monster stood there completely unfazed as if it hadn't taken a scratch. He looked at his energy display, which was flashing a critical warning. Beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. My mana is almost gone. I think I can only use Dominate one more time. His face turned grim as he doubted his own abilities in this life-or-death situation. Damn it, can I really do this? Can I really force her into my taming trap? Not giving his opponent a moment to rest, the warrior statue stomped its feet hard on the floor. It gathered momentum, preparing to launch a finishing blow. Pouring the very last of his mana into his hand, Tsukasa gambled his life on this one final shot. I'll bet everything I have on this one attack. He pointed his glowing finger forward, which shone like a miniature sun, and prayed silently. Please, work. All of his energy erupted into a blue 6 whirlwind that swept across the room as he yelled, Dominate Trap! His arm created a stream of blue light. Staring down the warrior statue, he declared in a loud voice, This is the final blow! Then Tsukasa used every last ounce of his strength, unleashing the maximum magical power from the palm of his hand. Explosive Dominate. A massive beam of blue light slammed right into the monster's chest at the exact moment it was airborne. A terrifyingly brilliant magical explosion occurred, leaving behind thick clouds of smoke that enveloped the statue. Completely drained of energy, Tsukasa collapsed to his knees, struggling to catch his breath. His eyes were fixed intently on the smoke. The enemy's silhouette slowly emerged, standing completely still, causing him to unconsciously hold his breath. Did its movements really stop? Did my skill actually work? The monster's eyes, which had been burning with a fiery fighting spirit, suddenly changed to a gentle azure blue. The flames of hatred vanished along with it. Its ferocious aura was suddenly gone. Realizing this miraculous change, he reached out a hand towards his opponent overjoyed. He exclaimed, It looks like the taming was a success. The warrior statue slowly lowered its weapon, planting the sharp tip of its sword into the stone floor. It knelt on one knee in a pose of absolute knightly servitude. In a very respectful female voice, it spoke. I am truly sorry, master. I beg your forgiveness for my previous insolence. Tsukasa stared down, his eyes wide, in utter shock at the creature kneeling before him. It can talk. Is it really a special type of monster that can communicate with humans? His jaw dropped in utter disbelief as he questioned the steel creature kneeling before him. Tell me the truth. Who are you? Without a moment's hesitation, the female knight raised both hands to her helmet and carefully removed the cold steel disguise. She casually tossed her platinum blonde hair, which flowed like clouds, revealing the beautiful face hidden behind the fearsome mask. A mature, sharp beauty with serene, deep blue eyes, combined with the pointed ears characteristic of an elf, Tsukasa was instantly captivated. She rested on her sword and proudly introduced herself. I am no one of noble standing. I am but a nameless servant of yours. Tsukasa, still unable to process it all, stared blankly at the beautiful knight kneeling in submission before him, stammering. She looked up at her new master with sincere eyes, pleading, Please, I beg of you, grant me a name, and allow me to remain in your service. Hearing this, he nervously stroked his chin, trying to process this insane situation. A name, huh? Oh, all right, I understand. You look just like a knight, so a fitting name would be. With a gentle smile, he decided to grant his loyal female servant a new identity. From now on, I will call you Jin. The knight's eyes widened with happiness, her cheeks flushing with emotion. Jin, is that... She bowed her head respectfully, her voice trembling with a mixture of joy and deep gratitude. I am eternally grateful. I have received your command. From this day forward, please call me by that name. But the sappy romantic atmosphere didn't last long before the sound of hurried clattering footsteps broke the silence. Little sheep Mimi, furious and jealous, dashed out from her hiding spot, waving her two stubby black arms, her face scowling angrily as she growled at the newcomer. Grumble. Startled by a chest running up and growling at her, Jin looked confused, not understanding what was happening. Meanwhile, Mimi aggressively bared her fangs and waved her claws, clearly asserting her territory. On the female knight, seeming to understand the monster's language perfectly, smiled. She replied gently to the little sheep's complaint, "I understand. Within this army, you are truly my superior. I know my place and my status. I will dedicate my all to you as your second in command. I eagerly await your guidance, instruction, and discipline." Meanwhile, Tsukasa just stood there, scratching his head in confusion, staring blankly as the two monsters carried on their incomprehensible exchange. What the hell is going on? Are they arguing? So even monsters have a senior-junior hierarchy, huh? But he quickly brushed that pointless curiosity aside. His expression quickly turned serious as he gave a clear order to his two companions. "Hold on. Now is not the time for that. We're in a hurry. We have to keep moving." He strode decisively past Jin, his eyes fixed on the emergency exit door. "Let's head straight for the exit of this underground tunnel system." Suddenly, Jin's formal voice stopped her master in his tracks. "Please wait, master, because you have completed your battle with me." The area boss who was slumbering in the room ahead has now awakened. She solemnly delivered the shocking news, shattering any faint hope he had for a safe passage. "The death match with the area boss will begin now." Tsukasa's eyes shot wide in horror as he spun around to confront her. "Wait a minute. What the hell are you talking about?" Jin calmly explained her cruel role within the dungeon system. "In other words, I am the gatekeeper of this dungeon." Remembering her terrifying violent form before he tamed her, he pictured the deadly trap mechanism. Once she transforms into a monster and the battle with an intruder begins, it acts as a trigger signal for the area boss to activate. She stood up sharply, pointing toward the door, which was emitting a deeply eerie blue light. "This battle is completely unavoidable. There is no leaving this dungeon without defeating the area boss." In despair, Tsukasa realized his fatal mistake. A battle with the area boss is a mandatory rule. "You've got to be kidding me. Good grief, and here I thought I'd chosen the easiest path." Sweat beaded on his forehead as he hurriedly turned his head and signaled a retreat. "This is bad. We have to go back. Let's give up on this underground route and take the one on the surface." But the female knight cruelly extinguished that fragile hope of escape with a cryptic smile. "No, that's impossible as well." She jutted her chin toward the sturdy iron door he had just passed through, which was now tightly shut by a sealing system. A red X-shaped magical seal. That door can no longer be moved by human strength. Once you've entered deep into the dungeon, turning back is impossible. Jin stood proudly, pointing her sword straight at the door glowing with a deadly blue light. "The only way out is forward into the boss's room." Looking at his completely depleted energy bar, Tsukasa's spirit broke, and he cried out in utter helplessness. "Even if you say that, fighting an area boss is impossible. After that last battle, I'm completely out of mana." Just when the tension was at its peak, little Mimi the sheep suddenly started scurrying around his legs, causing a surprised Tsukasa to bend down and ask, "Huh, what the heck is it, Mimi?" Its mouth was wide open, its tongue wagging as it continuously made strange sounds. On! Seeing the little sheep's strange behavior, Tsukasa flinched and turned back, his eyes immediately widening in surprise. From within its wide-open mouth, Mimi proudly held up a vial containing a sparkling blue liquid. It was a mana recovery potion. Overjoyed as if he'd struck gold, he quickly squatted down to pat Mimi's head. He praised the little creature as he took the vial. "You have a super convenient storage function like this. It looks like you can hide just about anything in there." He popped the cap off the vial and confidently raised it, a radiant smile returning to his face. "All right, now we're fully prepared to handle this." But the female knight Jin immediately and heartlessly threw a bucket of cold water on his burning confidence. "Master, are you capable of using high-level water magic? Even if your mana is restored, it's completely meaningless without that." Her words confused him. The knight then described the brutal reality of the situation, bringing to his mind images of mages combining their powers. The area boss lurking ahead is like an incarnation of flame. Normally, one would need to gather several high-level water-type mages and attack it with a massive large-scale water magic spell all at once to defeat it. After listening to her explanation, a cold sweat broke out on Tsukasa's face. He realized his own limitations. Water magic. That's a difficult problem with my current power level. The trap I just used on you was already my absolute limit. He raised a hand to stroke his chin, his brain starting to work at full capacity to find a way out. I have to come up with a plan. Meanwhile, little Mimi seemed to detect something behind them. It snapped its head around its large, round eyes, staring suspiciously into the darkness. Wait a minute. Tsukasa turned to the female knight, beginning to expose a loophole in her rules. Jin, a moment ago you said we absolutely couldn't go back, right? That the door we just passed through cannot be opened by human strength. Hearing this, the female knight replied, "Yes, that is true." The corner of the strategist's mouth curled into a fierce, calculating smile. He stared directly at his two monster companions and offered an escape plan. So what if it's a monster that tries to open it, model? What would happen? If the target was a completely tamed monster like you or Mimi? Jin's eyes lit up with excitement as if he'd just realized the feasibility of his master's plan. Yes, if it's a monster, then perhaps the plan to return is possible. Before he could finish speaking, the entire room began to shake violently. Huge chunks of the ceiling came crashing down with a roar, startling them both. Thick clouds of dust billowed up. Tsukasa quickly backed away in alarm. What the hell just happened? Meanwhile, Jin calmly explained, "The enemy's rage. The area boss, the lord who rules this dungeon, has begun to move. It seems it has completely lost its patience, and has decided to attack us itself." The massive door at the far end of the room suddenly exploded and violent pillars of fire erupted outwards. Jin then put on his hat and bravely rushed forward to block the attack for him, urgently shouting, "Master, quickly use a defensive spell! The searing flames are coming!" Without a moment's hesitation, Tsukasa thrust his hand out, casting a vibrant purple magic shield just as the ceiling's surface cracked and was about to collapse. A dazzling fiery explosion erupted violently, blasting away every obstacle in the narrow room. A sea of flames surrounded them, closing in from all sides. It burned up all the air, making him scream, "Damn it, we're surrounded!" Terrifying pressure bore down on the small team trapped inside the scorching flames that were incinerating everything to ash. A giant fireball plummeted straight down from above, threatening to crush everything. Tsukasa strained to maintain the fragile protective shield, his face contorting from the immense pressure. Damn it! What kind of firepower is this? The room was collapsing. Beneath the energy dome, he and Jin were using all their strength to hold off the fiery boulders raining down. Red-hot stones rolled across the ground, letting off thick smoke. Suddenly, a glowing purple magic circle appeared, covering the cracking tile floor. The three of them stood firmly on the glowing magic formation, varying as everything around them crumbled and fell into the dark abyss. Faced with this grim reality, Tsukasa broke out in a cold sweat, his eyes unable to hide his terror. Towering out of the sea of flames, a giant, burning demonic creature appeared, staring down at the tiny intruders. So this is the area boss. It was made entirely of molten lava and blazing fire, overwhelming everything around it with its terrifying heat, the very embodiment of flame. Standing before the towering lava monster, Tsukasa bitterly realized all the rooms we've passed through until now were nothing more than a pathway. Everything was just the path leading to this boss room. The story pauses here for now. And that is the journey of Ninomiya Tsukasa, a main character who doesn't rush into solo with a sword or magic, but uses every kind of trap to turn the battlefield into a nightmare for monsters. Personally, I find this series captivating because the fights are incredibly creative. The MC is both cunning and plays dirty, so watching it never feels one note like other typical dungeon series. Later on, the scenes of setting traps, turning the tables, and manipulating the battlefield get much more spectacular. If you're a fan of the big-brain MC type who uses strange yet effective fighting styles, this series is definitely worth checking out. If you're hyped for Part 2, let me know in the comments to get me motivated.